For centuries, capitalists ruled the world. They crafted a dystopian hellscape and commodified everything. Life, democracy, even the planet. Facing extinction, a rebel group emerged to challenge the capitalists. The online left, a group of deviants, Zoomers, and millennial misfits devoted to shitposting their way to a better world, one tweet at a time. Will they put aside their hatred of one another to defeat their capitalist common enemy? Find out now on Dystopian Times.
Witness destruction of everything that you know. While others chase the elite, we stand alone. Dark days coming, regardless, we never running. People still suffering, and everybody's wondering who's gonna lead the charge, who's gonna be the choice. Rooted from the bottom so the underdog can have a voice. Foundation, based in reality. Power to the people, people power, not a fallacy. Call it what you wanted, but I know you hear us coming. Eyes wide open, cause you see we're on to something. The future on the line. We're here to redefine. Political powers recognize these dystopian times.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dystopian Times. My name is Mike Figueredo, and I am so excited to bring you this week's panel. We have a great lineup. I'm not even going to waste any time because we have so much to talk about. I know we're not going to get to everything that's on the agenda, but I will try to squeeze in as much stories as we possibly can. So, folks, without further ado, let's welcome our fantastic panel. Folks, you saw her not too long ago because she was part of a viral video, and hopefully we'll have some time to talk about that today, and she can kind of share her story. It's Tina Desiree, folks. Tina, welcome to the show.
Hey,
how's it going?
I'm going great. I'm glad to be here. What a great show entry, by the way. I'm a big fan of Tony Tig. Good stuff.
Yes, who is it? I mean, Tony Tig is the best, rapper in all of left-wing media. Although I shouldn't say that because if I'm forgetting another left-wing rapper, I could be, offending them. But Tony Tig is great. All right, folks. Well, this is someone who has been a longtime activist, longtime progressive, who basically every single person knows. I've been on her show. I've used her videos and her pressuring politicians. I mean, just an all-around fantastic person. Folks, it's Lauren Steiner. Lauren, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Mike?
I am doing well. I'm so happy to have you here. Love the glasses, by the way.
Yeah. I'm so happy to be here with you guys because I know you all personally. Although you and I have never met in person.
Right.
I feel like I know you.
For me, someone who's agoraphobic and never leaves home, I basically this is as close to knowing each other as I can possibly get. So I feel like we know each other. We can call each other friends, I feel like. Okay. Next is somebody who is a Twitch streamer that I actually found on the Hippy Dippy Championship, and I thought she did an amazing job, and she's just all around just a wonderful person. Folks, it's Josie Rose. Josie, welcome to the program.
Hi, how are you? So happy to be here.
So happy to have you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I love the bright aesthetic. It's very your background is very happy. It'll be a nice contrast to all the doomer, horrifyingly depressing stories we talk about. So the happiness and the brightness, I always welcome and encourage that.
Yeah, I'm a cozy streamer, right? So we talk politics, we do some base points, but we cozy about it.
Yeah.
That's you have to do it. That's why on Twitch streams, I have a dog cam. So it's a form of therapy while we talk about the world ending through climate change and whatnot. So, it's the balance is what you try to find, and, great work there. All right, folks, last but not least, it's longtime legendary journalist and friend of mine. It's Jordan Chariton of Status Coup. Jordan, how's it going?
Thank you for that promotion. I like that. I'm good.
Yeah, well, good to see you. Man, we have a lot of things to talk about today, so I'm not going to waste any more time. I tend to babble on during these segments. I'm doing it right now, but I know everybody has a lot to say about this story. So Supreme Court allows Texas 6-week abortion ban to take effect. So what this means is abortions in Texas are effectively banned. So I want to read a little bit of details here about this story, and then we'll take it to the panel. So this is from Alice Miranda Olstein of Politico, who explains the Supreme Court early Wednesday let a Texas state law take effect that allows private citizens to sue to uphold a ban on the procedure after 6 weeks of pregnancy, potentially creating a new template for states to impose strict restrictions on the procedure. Now, I should note that there are no exceptions for rape and incest. So it goes to show you how extreme this bill is. The court's decision to not act on an emergency petition from Texas abortion clinics comes as the justices prepare to more broadly reconsider the right to an abortion it established almost 50 years ago. In May, justices agreed to review Mississippi's ban on the procedure after 15 weeks of pregnancy, a direct challenge to Roe v. Wade, the landmark 1973 decision that legalized abortion nationwide. Those arguments are expected later this year with a ruling in 2022. So this is a de facto overturning of Roe before the Supreme Court has time to hear the Mississippi case, said Planned Parenthood President Alexis McGill Johnson. And Texas will now go back to being pre-Roe state, turning the clock back 50 years. Now, one of the most bizarre elements of this law is that it would deputize citizens to file civil suits against abortion providers or anyone who helps facilitate the procedure after 6 weeks. So this means that if you are an Uber driver doing your job, driving someone to a clinic to have an abortion, you could be sued. Now, for those of you who don't necessarily know why these bills are so egregious, these are basically these so-called heartbeat bills. Now, under Texas law, this is from Vox, by the way, patients would have to know their menstrual cycle well and immediately recognize they are pregnant in order to get an abortion. They will also need to be able to travel to a clinic and get together the money for the procedure within the time allowed. 6 weeks gestation is just shortly after most pregnant people miss their first period, meaning many people don't know they are pregnant at this stage. The law contains an exception for medical emergencies, but not for a pregnancy resulting in rape or incest. So, I mean, what I feel like is this is a precursor to what will ultimately be a reversal of the Supreme Court precedent. Lauren, did you want to jump in? I know you have a lot to say about this particular subject.
Well, as the only person who was born, the only person on this panel who was born when abortion was illegal, I do have a little bit to say about it because I didn't realize until decades later that one of our family trips to Puerto Rico was so my mother could have an abortion. But, you know, this is what wealthy women did in those days. And what I remember as a time, you know, innocently, this was in the early 60s, you know, playing in the pool, trying to catch lizards. You know, my mother was there having an abortion. And it was basically because she had 2 kids and she didn't want any more. And that's what women of privilege were able to do versus women who had no privilege, who were poor, were, you know, resorting to these coat hanger abortions, these back alley abortions. And what's interesting to note is in 1967, California became the first state to legalize abortion. And there was a flight from Dallas where it was very, you know, impossible. And they actually called it the abortion special. That was what it was referred to. This flight, there were so many flights from Dallas to Los Angeles called the abortion special or the non-family plan. And I interviewed a couple of weeks ago, David Talbot, the famous journalist who founded Salon. And he just did a book on famous 60s activists, one of whom was Heather Booth, who was one of the organizers of the Jane Collective, which was, I guess you could say it's the equivalent of today's mutual aid, where these women got together and they actually performed abortions. It wasn't like they were intending to do that. They originally had a doctor, but then they saw this doctor was trying to make a lot of money off of it, and they watched how easy it was to do. So they sort of trained themselves, and they had this sort of underground railroad, if you will, of people that were performing abortions in Chicago. And I really feel like that's the days that we're going back to, and I just can't believe it's happening.
Yeah, Tina, does it feel like people even acknowledge what will happen if this takes effect? I mean, let's say, hypothetically speaking, the Supreme Court does indeed reverse, Roe and Casey. I mean, in my opinion, I think that abortions in 12 states would probably be illegal within a month, if not weeks. Do you think that people, like the average Americans who see this story, acknowledge that abortions won't actually decrease? They'll just become illegal and unregulated. Like, what's your take on what the average person will think about this?
I agree with you. They're not going to disappear just because it becomes outlawed. What will happen is they'll become more dangerous for women because they will be done illegally in back rooms, or in the case where you're wealthy, you can go somewhere, fly somewhere and get it taken care of. But if you're not of the privileged class, it's going to become very dangerous. And I think your assessment is also right as far as how many states will do it, because we have these so-called heartbeat bills that are being put on hold right now only because there's somebody that they can sue, right? So Planned Parenthood, whoever else, can go after the attorney generals for the state to stop these from taking effect. But what the thing is they did with this bill is they've now taken that right away and given it to these citizens, so the citizens can sue. And not only are they deputizing the citizens, they're also saying to these other folks, well, you can't sue the attorney general now. We're not the ones that are like doing it. It's these other folks, right? It's these private citizens. So it's very dangerous on many levels. But to answer the broader question of how most Americans will perceive this, I don't think they care. There's this whole, I mean, and maybe Lauren can speak on this too. I feel like that there's just a lot of despondence about it. And it's a very scary and dangerous situation that we're in. If we lose the right to abortion, it will be a very dark day in America, and it will affect a lot of women. 6 weeks, most women don't know that they're pregnant 6 weeks in. And let me also say this, they call it a heartbeat bill, but the fetus doesn't even have a heart yet, right? So it's kind of a misnomer to call it that. But that's what they're calling it because they obviously want to, engender this idea that it's an actual baby at 6 weeks and you'd be killing a baby. So it's all about the way they want to phrase things. But I don't see a lot of people protesting this. I'm a little bit concerned about that. There should be more concern out there in the streets, and I'm not seeing it.
Well, yeah. The last poll that I found in 2018, it was a Gallup poll, and it said that 48% were pro-choice, 48% were pro-life, 28% wanted to overturn Roe versus Wade, and 64% do not. So
wow.
I feel it's like with the vaccination thing, people are coming out of the woodwork, and we saw, at the same weekend, we had people protesting the mask mandates here in Buncombe County. In fact, the only time my wonderful rep, Madison Cawthorn, has come to—
I'm so sorry, Lauren.
My new rep in Asheville, the only time he came to—
That guy is a lunatic.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about what he said this past weekend, but the only time he came to Asheville was to sit there and at the Buncombe County Board of Education to talk against the mask mandates and basically talk about them like they were the Nuremberg laws. I mean, it's insane.
It's insane.
But I also found out that there was one in Santa Monica. And
there was.
Friends of mine who are anti-vaxxers, even before COVID, were in attendance. So I know you want to get to this story later when you talk about Joe Rogan and ivermectin, but I mean, it's like you got the fringe elements of the left and the right, and maybe that's the case with abortion. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, it seems like they're politicizing a public health crisis in both circumstances.
Absolutely. That's a great observation. In fact, on that note, I wanted Jordan to react to this tweet from friend of the show, Jen Perlman, who says, Texas is taking away a woman's right to choose what to do with her body. All those saying my body, my choice about vaccination, don't the same principles apply here? So, I mean, I feel like at this moment, Jordan, like the people who deem themselves pro-life after they've been showing up to school boards, harassing, members of their children's school over mask mandates, why I feel like we're kind of playing their game when we even call them pro-life. Can you just speak about the hypocrisy here, Jordan? Because you've experienced COVID firsthand, and you know how serious it is, but yet they have no concern about that. However, when it comes to fetuses who are not alive yet, even before the heartbeat is there, as Tina says, that's where they're concerned about. When the baby is born, however, no welfare, no support whatsoever when it comes to social safety net. So speak about this, Jordan, because I know you have a lot to say when it comes to the hypocrisy here.
Indeed, and I apologize. I actually, from COVID, got a bad case of asthma, and as the night goes on, I cough. So Apologies if I'm coughing a little bit, but
yeah, no problem.
Republicans and hypocrisy, no.
Who would have thought?
It's really something, and I mean, this. Honestly, I've said this entire time, this COVID thing, it's not really about vaccines per se. I mean, if Trump went out from the beginning hardcore and said, I made the biggest, most beautiful vaccine and you should take it, they'd be taking it. But he didn't. But what's really striking to me, Jen's absolutely right. And it's mostly, by the way, men. I mean, I don't want to say there aren't female anti-vaxxers, because there are. But I mean, Tina could tell you a lot of these anti-vaxxer rallies are a lot of older, sometimes, younger white men with resentment, and they would like to tell women what to do with their bodies. Yeah. But if anybody even suggests, not even tells you, but suggests you do this, don't tread on me. So I think there is not only hypocrisy, but a sexism to it. And I'll also say, in addition to how dangerous this is for women, the added component, besides outlawing abortion, is this law has basically created a bounty hunter system.
100%.
In Texas, where there's already reports of increases in people waiting outside abortion clinics. It's like the whole, wanted $10,000 reward sign in the wild, wild west. Maybe it wasn't 10,000, but this basically allows people, if you sue somebody civilly and win, then the other person has to pay you who sued $10,000. So besides pro-life, right-wing extremism, there's money in it. And I don't know, Tina could tell you, I sure can, from seeing this exploding white supremacist conspiracy movement over the last few years. When you add on a financial reward, wow.
Well, I would like to level a little bit of criticism at the women's reproductive rights movement, because I don't think they've played it very well. And I've been watching this for a few decades. When Roe was decided, even at the time, there was criticism that it was not an absolute right to abortion. They were using the privacy right in the Constitution to stretch it a little bit. And so they even said in the decision that it was not an absolute right. And that's how they came up with the trimester system. And then that was overturned in Casey. But people were saying, Lawrence Tribe, who I don't agree with on a lot of things, but he was even saying that there should have been a legislative movement for abortion. And what the women's reproductive rights groups have done is so focused on Roe versus Wade being overturned every time there's a Supreme Court justice nominee. It's all been focused on that. Meanwhile, they have ignored what's happening in the states, because these laws since Reagan have been whittled away in the states, whether it's parental control, parental consent, even if your father was your rapist, spousal consent. You have to look at ultrasound pictures of a fetus. You have to watch a lecture. This is ridiculous, all these little laws. And these women's rights groups, like so many groups on the left, I will say, focus almost on federal politics to the exclusion of state politics. And the right doesn't make that mistake. They start with the school board, they start with the city council, and then they get up to the state legislatures. And that's how come all of these formerly Democratic states now have become Republican. And even North Carolina, we have a Democratic governor, fortunately, who has to veto, 3/4 of the crap that the Republican legislature does. But you look at ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, they're the ones putting in all these laws.
That's right.
The Stand Your Ground law, the Papers, Please law, the Emergency Manager law that Jordan knows very well, to take away local control, but only in poor communities like Detroit and Flint and Benton Harbor. So I feel like, everybody comes out when, there's a Kavanaugh or an Amy Coney Barrett, but by that point, it's too late.
It's too late. I agree. Yeah. I think that's fair criticism.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad that you brought that up, because we do tend to miss the forest for the trees sometimes, and I think that this should really help to recenter us. I wanted to ask Josie, because you have an activist background, this really feels like the warning sign, like the sirens are going off right now. We're about to see Roe v. Wade be overturned. Like, this is a huge moment. What do we do? I feel like this is a hair on fire moment, kind of as like Tina alluded to, but people seem somewhat ambivalent.
Yeah.
What do we do in your opinion? Like, what would make the most impact? Because I kind of see this news and my instinct is to feel hopeless, to kind of shut down. What's your advice to people watching who are feeling that same way?
That we need to get involved, and you have to get involved. And before I get into my answer, I just want to note that I did not know there was a Twitch strike today. I was at work all day, and I didn't know that there was a hashtag going around. So I am going to have to cancel my stream on my end, but I will still be showing. I'll still show up. So I'm just going to hit, and I'm just letting my audience know that and saying that to bring attention to this, because hate raids are real. I've been raided so many times, and it's as a trans woman, it's almost every stream. So I am going to stand in solidarity with especially my sisters on this. And in my side of the stream, but I shouldn't affect anything on your end.
Can I just ask you, because I'm not familiar, what are the hate Twitch raids?
Okay, so I just ended my side of the stream, so now let me just pull this over here.
Sorry to go off tangent. I'm just curious.
No, this is actually, I'm glad that you brought this in, because it's nice to touch on this too.
Yeah, absolutely. So hate raids, there are subreddits, there are communities that are being built in the back end of like internet back rooms, and they target small streamers, particularly women, to basically try to demoralize them to not want to stream. So if you're a small streamer, you don't have a moderator, you have no ability to really stop all the hate coming at you. And the reason people are mad at Twitch as a platform, the reason that people are mad at Twitch as a platform is because they haven't provided enough tools for creators to be able to do it. So for example, if I want to make sure nobody says a T slur at me, I have to write it into the back end of words that are banned on my stream. And not only that, every single type of character that looks like the T slur. So I've had moderators go in and spend hours of their time going in and putting in every single form of the word. And just for my viewers that are on, you can come and join, be a part of my Discord. I'll still chat with you.
Josie, real quick, reach out to me afterwards so I could remind you about another really important thing to protect yourself. I won't say it live because I don't want to give people like ideas or encourage anything, but it's a really important thing to protect yourself. Just remind me about that after we're done.
And it has serious impacts, because I work with a lot of professional women in particular on streams, and we don't say, we try not to give where we work anymore. We don't want to try to give too much about our own information in life. I've had personal friends who have gotten emails at work trying to say terrible, hideous things about them because they were critical of another streamer that happened to be a man. Like all of these things are starting to pile up, and I always like to say, and I don't mean to divert the topic too much, but we're on the gates of Streamergate. Streamergate is going to happen. It's only a matter of time. Gamergate was about women being allowed on a space and playing video games on a platform to be able to be in an environment that isn't toxic and sexist and just constant harassment. Female streamers in particular, and female presenting non-binary people, they're the people that are getting a lot of this hate and a lot of this anger, and it's attacking the small streamers. There's a chilling effect. So as female streamers drop off of the stream, it continues to breed that toxic energy that is starting to boil within the platforms of Twitch, and Twitch needs to do something about it. And I hope that this boycott does something, because like you said, I'm an activist. When I started to see like, hey, did you know there's a strike? I'm like, no, I didn't. And so I wanted to make sure to say that on the platform, and then get off of the platform to let people know that I did this because of the strike. But as far as the grander part of the question about abortion rights, again, here we are. And it's like a moral fight, right? Where it's like, okay, it's abortion here, it's trans rights here, it's equality over here, it's conversion therapies over here, and all of this moral type of like rhetoric of like trying to control people's lives, it's demoralizing. It's like, what do we fight for? The trans sports in school in the state of Texas? Or do we now have to divert everything through abortion rights? It's like it's a continual seesaw back and forth, and it's extremely aggravating, especially as activists, because we have for years, and I know because everybody on this call has been a part of the Bernie Sanders movement back in 2015. And when we built and designed this organization and pushed to bring the progressive movement forward, that spirit and energy started to fizzle out because we kept losing and we kept losing and we've kept losing. And now it's weathered us down to the point of like, oh my God, now we can't just fight for progressives. We have to fight for abortion rights now. We have to fight for just basic human dignity for people. And so when you say, what is the answer? The answer is to not give up, to stand in solidarity and continue to be active and be a part of your local communities. Because sometimes it's not important to just look at the Senate and look at just one seat in the Senate and get mad at that. It's about getting mad at your local level, the person, the representative in your state that voted for this. That's where the anger needs to be generated, because that's what scares politicians, when you get them at the local level. So for me, as activists, don't go for the top. Go for a place where you live and fix your backyard, because your backyard is dirtying the entire country too. And we need to make sure that we fight those fights at a smaller scale, because those scales we can actually win.
Well, from a macro point of view, and I'm always saying I don't like identity politics because I think it divides the left. We get what's been called the oppression Olympics, where everybody's into their own identity fight, and there's not a lot of intersectionality, although some groups try to form that. I felt hopeful that the Bernie movement and the Occupy movement before that, which I was also a part of, was about the 99%, aligning on class issues. And 99% is like, you can't get more inclusive than that. But now I think what's happening is, I read a really interesting analysis the other day about the demographics, that, the United States is no longer going to be a white nation. So there's a lot of, white supremacy, and even, in this conversation about abortion, patriarchy, all these things that are bubbling back up to the surface, and they're attacking things like, mask mandates and critical race theory and trans women in sports and all these kind of issues, because they don't have anything else, and it's a distraction, and it's how they bring in their base. And the evangelicals, we got them here. I have given up on them, because to me, when you're that religious and fundamentalist about something that is not scientific, you can't beat that with science. It's almost like going back before the Enlightenment in the medieval age, where people believed in, just beliefs, not facts. And you can't argue with the belief, right? So it's very difficult. I went into a store today, and there's a mask mandate now in Buncombe County, and two of the employees were, openly flaunting it. They weren't wearing masks. And when I asked my salesperson about it, who was, and also is pregnant right now, she said, neither of them have been vaccinated and neither of them will wear a mask. And then I had this really strange experience trying to call the Buncombe County Health Department to try to find out, are they going to enforce this or not, And I'm thinking, maybe I should start an app where people can report, which businesses are doing it and which businesses aren't. Because if government isn't going to protect us, maybe it comes down to us, right?
Yeah. I want to touch on what you said, Lauren, about this being a distraction. I think that, during the 2015, because we're all part of the original Bernie movement, it really felt like we were moving in this direction where we were tackling economic issues, talking about healthcare, housing issues. And what I've noticed is that the GOP, they've kind of tried to pull us backwards, right? They hyper-focus on these really strange wedge issues that can maybe bring people over to their side. Masks is certainly one of those issues. Also, I think that, after we got marriage equality in 2015, the LGBTQ plus movement was really hyper-focused on trans rights. It's time to bring this issue to the forefront as well. And then the conservative movement latched onto that. So it feels like, we're starting to run, we're starting to make progress. And collectively as a society, we acknowledge that treating people better, this is a generalization, but treating people better is good. We all acknowledge that. We all know somebody who's gay. We're finding out that our friends are transgender. We're acknowledging that abortion is here to stay, even if it is outlawed. So, we all kind of collectively as a society, we gravitated towards economic issues, but then the GOP and the party is using these issues to kind of drag us backwards. And that's what I do notice. I do think that they're trying to do this as use this as a distraction, but it's so gross because even though they're trying to distract us by pulling on these issues, like it's still absolutely nefarious and it's harming people. Like one thing I always cite this. I forgot who did it, but it's a little graph that shows the amount of anti-trans legislation that affects youth, and they go year by year. And in 2021, there's this explosion of anti-trans legislation across the country, banning gender-affirming care, banning trans girls from high school sports. So all of this is because they don't really have a counter to the economic discussion that was happening. So, and this is not anything new. This is what, evangelicals and right-wingers have always done, but it is important to kind of point out that they can't deliver in any other way. So the best thing that they can do for themselves politically is to promote bigotry. And it really is morally reprehensible. But speaking of bigotry, I do want to get to the next subject here. So before we talk about this, this is the Elijah McClain story. I just want to play a clip. Now, usually I don't go out of my way to promote MSNBC segments. Having said that, though, it's a really concise segment that summarizes the story, and the anchor's response was very human, and it's really nice to see that. So let's watch, and then we'll get to the update here, and then the panel will react.
And David Henderson, one of the things that's so particular about this case is, as you mentioned, based on everything we know about it, there was no reason for Elijah McClain to have been stopped in the first place. Somebody saw him walking at night. He had a ski mask on. He said he was cold. It was Colorado. And he said he was anemic, and that's why he had a ski mask on. And then he was set upon by police and was drugged by paramedics. They gave him 500 milligrams of this powerful sedative. This kid was 5'6", weighed 140 pounds, and they gave him enough sedative that you would give to somebody who weighs 220 pounds. And his final words are haunting and tragic. He says, God. He says, I can't breathe. He says, I can't breathe. I have my ID right here. My name is Elijah McClain. That's my house. I was just going home. I'm an introvert. I'm just different. That's all. I'm so sorry I have no gun. I don't do that stuff. I don't do any fighting. Why are you attacking me? If Elijah McClain isn't safe, who is? Who is David Henderson, Paul Butler? Who's safe? I'm sorry.
No, that's why we're here. And I appreciate you drawing attention to what's important.
Yeah, so seeing him, watching this clip for the first time, it really, it struck a nerve in me. And I wanted to share that clip because he gives you some background into, Elijah McClain's last words and whatnot, but I do have an update to that story. So this is from the Daily Beast's Zoe Richards writes, 3 cops, 2 paramedics hit with 32-count indictment in Elijah McClain's death. A district attorney initially cleared the cops who tackled McClain on the ground, but it took public outrage and an independent investigation to prompt a new inquiry. So a grand jury has returned a 32-count indictment against 2 Aurora police officers, 1 ex-officer, and 2 local paramedics, and the death of Elijah McClain. Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser said on Wednesday. All 5 defendants, Aurora police officers Randy Rodina and Nathan Woodyard, former officer Jason Rosenblatt, and fire paramedics Jeremy Cooper and Lieutenant Peter Chichunek, sorry, I'm butchering their names, but you get the point, face 1 count of manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide. Now, the Attorney General has stated that, these cases are really difficult to prosecute, so don't get your hopes up. But I think that the mere prospect of justice for Elijah McClain, the fact that we're seeing these indictments, it's a little bit of hopium. I mean, Josie, do you want to speak to this issue? Because, this is one story of many that we've seen over the last 5 years. And it's exhausting. And I think that to this point, many people just don't even expect any sort of justice whatsoever. And even when we get justice, as was the case with George Floyd, it doesn't feel like we won because he's still gone. So can you give us some of your thoughts on this topic, Josie?
Well, first immediately is just the emotional outrage, of how just blatant all of this is, and that another kid is dead. And the thing that, and going back to, the way the Republicans and talk about, is systemic racism real, critical race theory bad, and they just start going all down this road of like how like racism doesn't exist, and that if we talk about racism, and yet they are the first ones to cry about how we had protests that prolonged across the streets of this country and say that those were violent, when what else is there? Like if we're quiet and peaceful about it, another kid is dead without justice. And then when we get mad and angry about the injustices in this country, all of a sudden the people who are on the streets are bad just for a scrap of justice. Now we're starting to see that we have some more district attorneys being elected now, where they're starting to take these things seriously. We're starting to see a little bit of growth and movement in the justice system, but that's not everywhere. So we may have justice in some cities, but what about the other cities that are still starving and thirsting for just the monicum of the ability to basically walk around and live in your own communities? So I know my reaction, you went to me first because my reaction is the most emotional on that, because after seeing that, it's like, how many more times do we have to continue to live this story? It's like, it's the title of the show is perfect, Dystopian Times. Like it is absolutely dystopian that we continue to live this over for decades now, and it just breaks my heart.
Yeah, and one thing about this is, the conversation about policing and Black communities being targeted, that was finally something that white Americans, I think, were privy to because of the Black Lives Matter movement. But Jordan's reporting really highlights how it's not just racism in policing. Like, this truly is an institutional issue. I know that you reported on an Amazon worker. I believe her name was Pushon Brown. Is that correct, Jordan?
Yes.
Yeah, how she basically was, there were no worker protections. She ended up dying from COVID after Amazon forced her, someone who's not a medical professional, to administer COVID-19 tests. On top of that, we see communities of color disproportionately affected by COVID-19. Every single issue, it always hits communities of color the hardest. We're seeing Line 3, the Enbridge pipeline, hitting indigenous communities. So at what point, Jordan, do you think that America actually has a serious conversation about institutional racism and white supremacy? Because I feel like every time we begin to have that conversation, the conversation gets co-opted by the right and Fox News and all of these propagandists who want to distract us from having this very serious discussion.
Yeah, I don't want to minimize what you're saying, but I don't think we need a conversation. I think we need radical action now. Because conversation, I mean, you always hear that on cable news after this, whether it be mass shootings, whether it be, it's just, I know you don't mean it that way, but it's just a phrase to kind of kick the can down the road. Bottom line, there's several things wrong. Tina's seen it. I've seen it. Number one, you can't have police. If they're involved in an incident, that's the end of the road. They're not the ones that should be filing police reports, which time and time again, they lie in the police reports, and then it goes to internal affairs, which is basically the CIA of police. Internal affairs is just basically HR for police to protect them. So if a police officer is involved in a situation like this, they go in their corner. There needs to be independent, community-led oversight of every police department in America. Sure, you could sprinkle in there former police, social workers, what have you. But it's like an arsonist going to burn down a building, and then like the arsonist goes and files the report on what happened. I mean, it's insane. The second thing, and it kind of reminds me of the Trayvon Martin murder, but we need to start talking about people making 911 calls in this country. Mm-hmm. I know the whole thought is, if you see something, say something. And sure, if you see an empty suitcase in the middle of a subway, maybe, that could be problematic. But when you get to this, people with their own biases calling 911 because something seems suspicious, and then you have police departments who are inherently full of racist people, well, that's a recipe for disaster. So why, if somebody on 911 is calling and they're not reporting a crime, okay, why are the police going out in the first place? In the case of Elijah McClain, they said, it was decided that they had no legal right to even approach him for quote unquote being suspicious. And the third thing I will say, at the end of the day, I don't know if you could get justice. Maybe you could say accountability. But if you want to talk about COVID contact tracing, 20 years ago, we should have sent an army of psychologists into police departments up, head to toe, analyzing racial bias, PTSD, trauma, you name it. 60% of the police in this country would have their badges pulled away. That's what needs to happen. But the reality is, and this is a whole nother discussion, the police are there to protect capitalism and property. I give you Standing Rock. So Joe Biden, it's not all his fault. This is centuries and centuries, but Biden's not going to do anything. Obama didn't do anything, and a lot of these Black Lives Matter started under him. So I think the time for a conversation is long over. We need to demand action, and I don't know what form that takes, but there's going to be more Elijah McClains, and frankly, there's a whole lot more George Floyds we don't even know about.
Well, I'll tell you what action we should do is we should defend our district attorneys who are trying to do something about this. Right now in California, I don't know the latest, but I had read that they were trying to recall both George Gascon in Los Angeles and Chesa Boudin, who was on my show in San Francisco. And Chesa Boudin, who, by the way, his dad finally got out of prison because he was part of the Weathermen, and he drove the getaway car or something. He didn't actually kill anyone, but he was part of it. And he got to hug his father for the first time, I think, ever. Because I don't know if he was not born then. Yeah, I think he was born.
He was born.
But anyway,
it's his dad. For people that don't know, his dad is David Gilbert, who is a Weather Underground member. Just so people know what you're talking about.
That's his name. Are you sure?
David, yeah, positive.
Doesn't sound familiar. But anyway,
he was raised by Ayers. That's why people.
Bill Ayers, yeah.
Yeah, so they were all Weather Underground members.
And Bernadine Dorr. But, so I think people right now should, be involved with trying to fight that recall. And then the other thing, it's interesting because Asheville has inadvertently defunded the police. 40% of the police force is left. And there's a lot of reasons for it. One of them is, they had huge for a city of this size, 85,000 people, they had huge George Floyd protests last year before I moved here. And they were really anti-police. And the police do not make a lot of money. They start them at, $18 an hour. They can get up to $36,000 a year. It's not very much money. And they're realizing this is not a field they want to be in. It's dangerous. They're not appreciated. They don't make money. And so what's happened is they put out, the police chief put out a message that, hey, there's certain nonviolent calls that we're just not going to respond to. You can report them, but we're not going to send somebody out. And yet there's a lot of violence. There's a lot of murders in Asheville. I didn't realize how much crime there is here. And I think what people need to do is make very clear that the defund the police movement is not about not having police respond to violent crime, but it's not having police respond to mental health calls or traffic calls, because those are the situations that can really get out of hand. But again, those Republicans and certain corporate Democrats have taken advantage of that term, defund the police, including James Clyburn, who so famously sabotaged Bernie twice. He says, my people are telling me, and it's true. If you do polls in the Black community, they do want to have a vibrant police presence, but it's the kinds of things that the police are doing that are egregious that we're opposed to.
Well, there's the star program.
Can I just add one thing? And this is more to what Lauren's talking about. There's a whole lot of people on the left or whatever is declared the left these days, constantly focused on the Squad, Bernie, national politics. They can't even name who's on their city council. They can't even name who their district attorney is because it's not sexy. It doesn't get clicks, what have you. But I could tell you, as someone who's covered Flint and that cover up for 5 years now, yeah, it was a governor, but it was also local politicians who were corrupt that caused this to happen. So Lauren's absolutely right that a lot of this is locally based, but activists and other folks are only focused on the top line and not on the lower level.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I wanted to go to also Tina here, not just because I wanted to see more of her dog who's on the screen, but you're around the country and you're kind of seeing the way that the police behaves. And to me, like, I feel like most people who've been paying attention, they should have viewed the last couple of years as a full-on mask-off moment by police forces. Yeah. And to give you an example of that, I mean, Portland's bizarre experiment with not policing Proud Boys rampage ends in gunfire. This is from Robert Mackey of The Intercept, and there's a lot of videos of people outraged that they kind of just let the Proud Boys get away with everything. This, a similar story in Los Angeles, which you were a part of, Tina, that was something that you could speak to as well, where there were Proud Boys. The LA Police Department essentially stood by, which is what the criticism is. And that led to this viral moment, which a lot of people have seen. This is you right here. This Capitol rioter, Tony Moon, is attacking reporter Tina Desiree Berg today and ripping her mask off today in downtown LA. So can you talk a little bit about this, Tina? The way that events unfold because of the police, either their presence or lack thereof. Like, what have you seen in your experience as a journalist who's on the ground?
So, what happened 2 Saturdays ago and also in Portland, actually Sean Beckner Carmichael, who is the reporter that actually filmed the guy with the gun. I know him personally. I've worked with him. He was hiding behind a car as this was happening. And I saw the video. I was like, Sean, are you kidding me? And he's like, yeah, the guy had come forward. He had chased them. He had pulled the gun out, ran back. So this had been something that was a build up to that too. But here's the thing. Everything we're seeing right now, all of the unrest, all of the violence, we didn't get here overnight. This has been building up for months now. And I could say without equivocation that the police department treats both sides differently. And that is part and parcel to the problem. If what happened on Saturday, or if what had happened in Portland, if those had been BLM activists, they would have been shot. I can say that without equivocation. So I have hours and hours and hours of footage where I've been at a skirmish line and I've seen the difference in the way the LAPD treats both sides. And oftentimes they're only facing BLM activists. They don't turn around and look at the Trump people. And on Saturday, you saw that was right in front of LAPD headquarters for people saying, why did it take the cops so long to show up? I'm like, they were there. They were there before it started. They were standing right there watching it. And I'm pretty angry right now because, and I'm going to name names and shame names I've decided because I'm kind of done with this whole thing. Sergeant Gordon Helper, who is part of that Rampart division, and Captain Stabile, they are both part and parcel to the problems. They're both giant Trump supporters. They have been openly supporting Trump and saying ridiculous things about Antifa on their social media for months now. But the final straw for me was that Tony Moon actually went online and made this empathetic post about Tony Moon. Gordon Helper did. So I'm like, wait a second. So you were there on Saturday when I was being assaulted, when 2 people were stabbed. Also, there were 2 stabbings. When another woman was hit on the head with a hydro flask and had blood just gushing out of her head. You were there. You did nothing to interfere. And when you finally did interfere, it was because one of the anti-vaxxer guys, one of the Trump guys, was stabbed. Then all of a sudden you're going to get involved, right? Meanwhile, somebody else on the left had also been stabbed. So, I mean, this violence should have not have happened in the first place. But I think they allow it to happen. They have a bias. They're bringing their bias to the skirmish line. And it just blows my mind. So now this is escalating. I don't think this is getting very much media attention. But Tony Moon has now been showing up at the homes of journalists here in Los Angeles. He showed up at, there's a gentleman that I know that works for Vice who was a senior editor there. Actually, he's not there anymore, but they showed up at his house this week.
Wow.
They showed up at his house, him, Tony Moon, and like a group of 5 or 6 people. And they put flyers all over the neighborhood calling him a terrorist. Then they showed up at a photojournalist's house, who I know her name is Emily, and did the same thing. And so he's actively trying to find the addresses, and I'm sure he's going to show up at my house at some point. Why wouldn't I be on that list? He already hit me. But point being is, this is where things have escalated to. And you're right, the LAPD isn't going to do a damn thing about it. I've also had Internal Affairs send me a letter, right? So I read this letter and I think to myself, this is just a serious cover my ass operation. You guys aren't actually going to do anything to change this stuff. I can't believe I'm saying this all publicly, but I'm really riled up. Can you tell?
Well, Frank Stoltz. Frank Stoltz.
They attacked Frank Stoltz. It was horrible.
Yeah, Frank Stoltz has been a reporter. He's an older man. He's been a reporter for KPCC, which is one of the public radio stations. He was so shocked. He wrote a whole article saying, I've been covering protests for 30 years, including the Occupy protests, and nobody has ever physically assaulted me. And what I want to ask Tina, because I asked you this privately over direct message, is what do you make of Matt Taibbi, whose takes I agree with most of the time, going after Antifa? He actually had a whole
thought that was
Substack.
strange.
He had a Substack the other day that was just retweeted. I was on Joe Rogan's page because we're going to be talking about him maybe, which Joe Rogan repeated, in which it was all about Antifa and how they attacked the reporter for News to Share in Portland. And my experience with Antifa, now I've only covered them, 4 or 5 times, but every counter protest from Occupy inauguration to the day, which was, and I was there in the skirmish line between Antifa and the cops. I went off the permitted march just to cover this. And I talked to some of these people afterwards. Also, there was the big rally in Laguna Beach against the immigrants. There were 50 people protesting, immigrants are taking our jobs, and 2,500 people came out to counter protest them. I talked to Antifa people there. There was something similar in Santa Monica. And these people have all seemed to me to be very quiet, unassuming, not at all violent, not at all burly. They kind of look like skinny college kids to me. They're just, wearing black. They were very well spoken. I mean, some of them could have been DSA members,
Oh, 100%.
How much theory they knew. And quite frankly, I've always been grateful for Antifa because they're the only ones out there fighting these fascists. There's a group called Refuse Fascism, which was started by RevCom, the Revolutionary Communist Party, Bob Avakian's group. And I used to kind of disdain them, thinking they were all cultists, because every time there was a protest, including Occupy, they would show up handing out their newspaper, and they all, revere this Bob Avakian. But I swear to you, I lived just north of Beverly Hills during the whole Trump administration. Every time he was there having a fundraiser, I could not get the leftist groups to come out. The only people that consistently protested Trump and saw the danger of him and his administration
were Antifa.
No, not even
really?
Antifa. Were Refuse Fascism. And when I would reach out to these,
a lot of those guys are also members of Antifa, though, I believe.
Well, no, but they aren't. They're all Refuse. And because I had them on my show, and people would say, "Oh, we don't want to work with them." To this day, they're trying to organize Occupy 10-year anniversary party. And I spoke to one of the organizers, and he said, "Oh, Lauren, feel free to call anybody. We'll work with anybody, but not Refuse Fascism." And I just think that kind of sectarianism, or whatever you want to call it on the left, is ridiculous when we're facing this fascist threat.
Yeah, and to kind of go back to the
can I just say
go
one
ahead.
thing, because I've been covering Black Lives Matter protests for a long time. I got 5 years of covering Trump protests and that treachery. I really respect Matt Taibbi. It's not just him who's now taking this angle on Antifa. I didn't see these folks commenting when anti-vaxxer attacked Tina and
I know.
tried to pull her mask down. I have not seen them comment on the many. Maybe they just haven't seen it.
Matt's seen it.
I haven't seen them comment on the. There's a whole lot more attacks coming from either MAGA, QAnon, and now anti-vaxxers. There's all, and it doesn't make it okay if an Antifa person is violent, but it's really more narrative what's being pushed than
I don't
reality.
like the framing. So let me comment on that. I don't like the framing of that. I think if you're sticking to a principle, which is what I'm going to do right here, I'm going to say you should not attack press people, period, end of story. That is the end of the discussion. The problem I have with Glenn Greenwald and Matt Taibbi at this point is that they're framing it from the right wing, and I don't know why they're doing that. And I'm also kind of irritated that neither of them have been present at these things, and instead of reaching out and having a conversation with folks that were, maybe that should have happened, right? That didn't happen.
You mean journalism?
Yeah, and I know that
What's
didn't happen. It might. Well, I'm kind of irritated by this, especially from Glenn Greenwald. He knows better, and he was, making all of these posts about what happened at We Spa last month, and he was really, really hyper focused on this one, and I'm going to call it inconsequential thing that happened. There was this anti-trans Karen, so to speak, that showed up and was spewing a lot of anti-trans rhetoric and saying very hateful things. So some folks in Black Bloc chased her away from We Spa because they didn't want her coming up to the trans folks that were there protesting. So they were sort of acting like security, I guess you could say. Meanwhile, okay, so you're going to get hyper focused on that, right? Meanwhile, somebody was stabbed. I filmed it. He was a trans activist was stabbed. LAPD was there too. Nobody talks about it. Another press person, Rocky Romano, was hit on the back of the head with a lead pipe intentionally. A guy came up behind him, hit him back on the head with this like wooden lead pipe thing, ran away, got into a vehicle that was being driven by a gubernatorial candidate, by the way. That's another story.
Jeez.
Kid you not. Oh, this woman's running for governor right now. And then they were circling around the streets while he was in the car, and he's talking about how great it felt to crack this press guy on the back of the head with the lead pipe. So again, no mention of any of these things, which as far as I'm concerned are far more important to the story than anything else. Then Washington Post picks up a story on this, and they don't mention either of these things either. No mention of the stabbing. No mention of the press member attacked with the lead pipe. Oh, and let me also say Tony Moon was there, the guy that attacked me. Tony Moon was there, and he hit a woman and a trans person, two people, on the head with that hydro flask. I have video of both of it. There was another guy that had giant rosary beads, because I don't know how else you describe these things, that he had wrapped around his hands, and he was using them as a weapon. So he was hitting people and screaming, "You're an abomination. You're going to hell. You're an abomination." So these were all very hateful individuals doing very hateful, violent things. But yes, let's talk about the Karen that got chased out by Black Bloc, because that's what's important. So
that's all I heard about.
Okay, so you see my point. My point is this was an inconsequential thing, but because guys like Glenn, who didn't bother to find out the entire story about what had happened that day, decided to put that on blast, that's what people think was the problem. And I'm like, not even close. Not even close. And then the cops showed up to the stabbing victim's bedside in the hospital, and instead of treating him like a victim, tried to accuse him of inciting a riot, because that's what the cops do. If the victim isn't of the right, all of a sudden it still has to be their fault. It's insane that this is what's happening.
Yeah, the thing that makes me feel less hopeful about the situation, as you share these stories, it's that there is this growing subset of, I don't even know what to call it. I don't think that people like Matt Taibbi and Glenn Greenwald are I don't know if they identify as left anymore, but they're choosing what to talk about. They're choosing to omit certain things.
I don't understand it, because this is not how I perceived either of them to be. I've had a lot of respect for their journalism for years. I have for years. And so I'm kind of a little bit stunned and taken aback by this. And I'm trying to understand why that's happening.
Well, it's got to be hurtful for folks like you, like all of you. You're all on the ground quite a bit, either covering it as journalists or as activists or both. And I feel like you all have had, contacts with Glenn Greenwald, with these individuals who, in theory, should be aligned, should be helping to tell your story and using their platforms to bolster the things that you say. But I mean, it seems like they are making new friends. I don't know what the motivations are, so I won't speculate, but it is really depressing.
I mean, I'll speculate. There's certain people who would die without attention. So they tweet silly things. They are contrarian to be contrarian. They adopt right-wing talking points under the guise of, liberalism is, elite liberals. And I don't really care what people's label. You could be a leftist, you could be a libertarian. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, I don't know, call me old fashioned. I just care about the facts. And a lot of the things that are being sent out and put out are just not fact based.
They're not factual. Exactly.
And I'm always very careful. I'm always very careful when I'm not on the ground somewhere to talk unequivocally about what happened, because I just wasn't there. That's generally why I would have somebody who was there on. Right. So I, in this case, and it's not just about like Matt Taibbi or Glenn Greenwald. There's plenty of people kind of pushing these. I've seen even people I respect pushing out like, what's the harm in talking about ivermectin, which I know we're about to get to. If you care about science, the data shows it's not a COVID harmful. Treatment.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So we're segueing into the Joe Rogan segment. So the video that he posted to his Instagram live, it's about 1 minute and 30 seconds. I want to play it from start to finish. Some of it is irrelevant. He talks about like a show being canceled because he got COVID, but he says something at the end that nearly made my head explode. So folks, let's listen to Joe Rogan explain what he did after learning that he got COVID.
Hello, friends. So I got back from the road Saturday night, feeling very weary. I had a headache and I just felt run down. And just to be cautious, I separated from my family, slept in a different part of the house. And throughout the night, I got fevers and sweats, and I knew what was going on. So I got up in the morning, got tested, and turns out I got COVID. So we immediately threw the kitchen sink at it. All kinds of meds, monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin, Z-Pak, prednisone, everything. And I also got an NAD drip and a vitamin drip, and I did that 3 days in a row. And so here we are on Wednesday, and I feel great. I really only had one bad day. Sunday sucked, but Monday was better. Tuesday felt better than Monday, and today I feel good. I actually feel pretty fucking good. That's the good news. The bad news is we have to move the Friday show in Nashville. It's going to move to Sunday, October 24th. So that will be the new Nashville date. My apologies to everyone. Obviously, there's nothing that I can control. It is what it is. Crazy times we're living in. But a wonderful, heartfelt thank you to modern medicine for pulling me out of this so quickly and easily. And my love.
That's basically. So that last line there made my head nearly pop off my shoulders. Big thank you to modern medicine, as on his program, he regularly promotes conspiracy theories, has anti-vax rhetoric. And let me just say real quick here, for those of you who haven't already gotten the message, ivermectin is not FDA approved to treat COVID-19. People are getting poisoned because they are trying to get access to ivermectin. They're purchasing horse paste. So just to be overly responsible here, I want to take some time to go through this before the panel discusses. So in the event any of Joe Rogan's fans brigade the video when this is a segment, as they usually will, hi fellas, FDA has not approved ivermectin for use in treating or preventing COVID-19 in humans. Okay, not something that is acceptable. On top of that, for the individuals who call me a big pharma shill for being pro-vaccine and supporting modern medicine, the individuals promoting ivermectin may not have realized that Merck is the manufacturer of ivermectin, also big pharma, who had to put out this statement saying, please do not take ivermectin to treat or prevent COVID-19. That is not what it is for. If it is prescribed for human beings in a human dose, it's going to be for a parasite. So, I mean, in his video talking about COVID-19, he says he uses ivermectin. He says that he's feeling better. He looks horrible. A ton of the commenters said it as well. I don't understand why so many people are falling for this. And let me just say real quick also, so there's a little bit of this origin story. I know that Brett Weinstein is another IDW individual who's been promoting ivermectin, among others. But there's a group called the Frontline COVID Care Alliance, who's also been boosting this. And this is a really great report from Marissa Cabos of HuffPost. We can't get into it because it's fairly long, but I'd encourage you all to check it out because it gives you a little bit of insight into how this got popularized. But I don't think it's just this group. It's been popularized everywhere. Right before Joe Rogan got COVID-19 about a month or so ago, he had on a guest who promoted ivermectin. So I just want to put that out there and see, if the panel wanted to weigh in, because the ivermectin situation there's anti-mask made me lose faith in humanity. The anti-vax stuff made me lose more faith. And the ivermectin has me so doom and gloom. How did we get here, Tina?
What really blows my mind about this is that these are the same groups that are saying, I won't take a vaccine because it's experimental. Are you kidding me? Wait, because you think ivermectin isn't? Not only is it experimental, there's like no peer-reviewed studies on it whatsoever. Vaccine science, however, is quite sound, regardless of whether big pharma is corrupt or not. And it is. I will give you that. Bot science exists. Bot big pharma profiteering exists. Nobody's saying that stuff doesn't exist. But that doesn't mean that every scientist that works in biomedical research, that works in epidemiology, is part and parcel to that. They're not. It's a sound system. It is set up to have checks and balances. And we have thousands of studies on why vaccines are safe to use. The mRNA technology, financed by taxpayer dollars. The Pfizer vaccine, financed by the German government, taxpayer dollars. So this isn't only solely about big pharma. And you're right, Merck is who makes ivermectin. They are also big pharma. So none of this makes any sense to me. I just don't know where we got to such a stupid place. And I've also had people yell at me over this, but I'm just like, are you kidding me right now, guys?
Well,
listen, get vaccinated.
Let me say one thing about that, because I loved it when I found that statement from Merck. And that was the exact argument I used in my tweet. Look, if it's big pharma, why is Merck putting this out? And someone did answer me, and I have to say I haven't independently verified this, but they said that that ivermectin is off patent now. So Merck isn't making money from it. But Merck
but they're always going to have some ridiculous thing.
Let me finish the point. But Merck is actually working on an ivermectin for COVID, and they are doing studies on ivermectin for COVID.
Great, fair, do that.
My favorite meme was people that called you sheep for wearing masks and doing vaccines are literally taking sheep medicine.
I saw that. I saw that. And that was a really great meme. Okay, so Josie, the subtext here of this Joe Rogan story is that he praises modern medicine, has railed against vaccines multiple times. He took everything. Like he basically said, he did the whole kitchen sink, but he is presumably not vaccinated, unless I'm incorrect here. He discouraged young people from getting vaccinated. He's healthy. He says if you maintain good health, you don't need the vaccine. I would tell somebody who's young to not get vaccinated. Do you think, and this is kind of difficult because we're psychoanalyzing Joe Rogan here, Josie. Do you think he'll have a change of heart and finally stop promoting misinformation when it comes to COVID-19? What are your thoughts? Because I'm not too optimistic.
Well, I'm not too optimistic either. And he already thinks he's cured, 3 days later? Everybody knows that the symptoms hit you pretty hard. So we still got a few days to wait to see where that his body is going to protect him. And really, Joe Rogan is a product of what has been happening. And I did this on my my personal media, talking about. So I'm a vegan. I'm pretty public and open about that. In fact, I think I've even talked to you about it before, right? But there has been a weird connection between the holistic community, the yoga community, a lot of the vegan community have been co-opted into this, I'm tough, I'm healthy, Zen is my medicine type stuff, right? And it's a lot of woo-woo stuff. And what's happened is the Joe Rogan brand has kind of developed around this naturalistic, holistic type of situation. So for him, like, and this is something that I think about, you know, being a streamer myself, talking to other streamers and other personalities, is your brand and what you represent to your audience is everything. You can completely prove a personality completely wrong. Like ... this is the answer, 2 + 2 = 4 on their stream and everything, and they'll be like, well, I don't know, it doesn't matter, and then they'll completely just avoid it and not talk about it anymore, and because it protects their brand. So if Joe Rogan changes his tune, he's going to lose money. He's going to lose people. And it's very clear. Here's the data point. Look at Donald Trump talking about suggesting COVID vaccines, and he's even being booed by it.
I was going to mention that. He was booed in Alabama, and that was, I read that in an article that said his movement has gone to the right of him. He can't even control his movement anymore.
Exactly. So there is direct evidence that proves that devout zealotism, I guess, to be a zealot, to be one of those sheep that Lauren was talking about, you have to just follow that line of thinking no matter what. It's going to be politicized. And if Joe Rogan or any other leaders turn on that, then they are then cut by the 1,000 needles of the movement going around. So when it comes to Joe Rogan himself, like, honestly, I don't want to be mean, but like, it'll probably take like ventilation status of like him thinking that he may lose his life before that tune gets changed. And that's scary. And I don't want it to go to that point. I just want people to just see the science and do it. But I think really mortality is one of those things that make humans think straight. And I don't know if he doesn't reach that point, it's going to get worse.
Well, you know, Kim Iverson did a really good show on a good segment on Rising about this the other day, and it's this: the science keeps changing, or the experts keep changing, and they take it all the way back to Fauci in the beginning with saying, "Well, we shouldn't wear masks because they're not going to protect us," and then he said, "No, I was really just saying that because we needed to preserve the mask for the caregivers," and then the vaccine, people that have vaccines, they're okay. They don't have to wear masks. Oh, now they have to wear masks because they can be carriers and be asymptomatic. So this is such a new thing. And like our friend Nancy Kaufman, Tina, who also is a journalist, really looking into this stuff. I mean, she, like, my eyes glaze over when she starts talking about the biology and the medicine, but she really knows her stuff. And she said
she does.
All they had to have said was, "We don't know. This is our best recommendation," or "This is what we're finding out now."
The recommendations change as soon as they learn more stuff about it. That's how science is. Well, we get more information that is showing us this, so now we're going to change our conclusion. That's normal, folks. Of course, when you get more data, you should change your opinion. Why would you stick to the wrong conclusion when it's been proven that it's something else or something's changed or we've gained more knowledge? Science progresses on that. Like, I don't think there's anything controversial, conspiracy driven about that.
Can I make a few rapid fire points? I'll be quick.
Yeah.
One, Joe Rogan is a very wealthy person. We have no idea the grade of doctors he has. He might have an army of doctors right now he's talking to. A lot of people do not have the ability to take prednisone and whatever other cocktail he's taking. So I'm happy he's doing better, but we have no idea. He's probably getting a lot better treatment than average person would. Number two, to me, and I've seen this out in the country, this isn't even about the vaccine, Mike. It's not even about the masks. It's not. These people are, this is the perpetual, never-ending culture war in America. So if this was framed in a different way by Fox News, right-wing radio, blah, blah, blah. If the right wing thought that being the most rigid maskers and the most rigid vacciners could win them elections, they would have changed their beat in a minute. And frankly, the sheep would have followed. So to me, this isn't really about, like, I know people in my life that I have spoken with that are good people and won't take the vaccine, not really about the science or the data, but they have New World Order paranoia that the government's this is it. This is what's been building up for 40 years. They're trying, whatever takeover and all this stuff. And these are people that are actually good people that I know that are just getting a lot of propaganda. So to me, you know, it's dangerous, but it goes to the same thing about guns. And, you know, people don't really look at the specific issues and science or common sense when it comes to guns. They look at the culture war, the government's coming for you. And this has been really, I would say, it's not all Trump's fault, but this really started in 2010 and 11 with birtherism, enter the Tea Party, and then on and on, Trump 2016. The Democrats aren't, you know, completely.
They're not helping. No.
Yeah. But to me, honestly, if from the beginning, if this was framed in a different way by Trump, and basically in a way that the Dems are weak, we saved America, you know, this vaccine, we're going to make a big, bold, beautiful, made in, you know, made in Trump on it.
Right.
You'd have 80% of the country right now vaccinated, plain and simple.
Well, let me ask you guys a question on what you make of the anti-vaxxers on the left, because as I said earlier in the show, I've been arguing with them since before COVID. You know, I had, if you can hear the hoarseness in my voice, it's because I was treated for throat cancer 12 years ago with radiation, and my vocal cords were damaged. And my particular throat cancer was caused by the HPV virus. And a lot of people don't know that can cause throat cancer. And they would say, oh, you don't need that Gardasil vaccination because, you know, if you have a pap smear, you can find out cervical cancer before it becomes cancerous. But when you have throat cancer, it's so microscopic, they couldn't even find my primary tumor, and they tried 3 different types of scans. It didn't become apparent until metastasized to a lymph node in my neck, and by then it was stage 3 intermediate cancer. And I always tell people this story because if Gardasil were around when I was a young girl, I would have taken it. And I got my 2 young sons, they were teenagers at the time, vaccinated because throat cancer is more prevalent in boys. Men, I should say, 3 to 1. So they would say, well, you know, we don't need these vaccinations because everybody else is getting them and there's herd immunity. And I would say, well, you know, for someone who calls themselves a democratic socialist, who's so concerned about the collective, you're being very neoliberal right now. You're being very individualistic. You're only concerned about your own health or your kids' own health. Imagine if everybody thought like that, we would lose herd immunity. And guess what? With people like, you know, Jenny McCarthy and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. mouthing off about the mumps, measles, you know, rubella vaccine, we had an outbreak of the measles in California and in other states. So they're just like, you know, it's about what they're going to put into their body. And then it's almost like parallel to what we're talking about with the abortion people. You know, you can't tell me, like they're using the language of the civil rights movement at these anti-mask thing. Ooh, like we have there's the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, you know, like that's what they do in the civil rights movement. Or, you know, we've got these Nuremberg laws where you have to have a vaccination card. That's what they did in the Holocaust. So they're using all this framing. And I find that the left wing, you know, ironically and hypocritically does the same thing in the name of individualism. So I'm wondering if anybody has any response to that.
Yeah, I do. And one of the things that, you know, is again, that I don't want to doom pill people because of the dystopian times here. But what do we do when we have the ultra right wing and the ultra left wing on the same side? Like, you know, it's so beyond difficult because it just feeds into every facet. Because I think probably all of us on this call, I'm going to make an assumption, correct me if I'm wrong, probably knows somebody in their life that's somewhat close that probably hasn't gotten the vaccine yet for some BS reason. And that's 5 out of 5 right now. That's insanity. That is a bad sign.
It's insanity.
Right?
I agree.
Yeah.
It's insanity. Look, this is a public health crisis. We are all in this together. My decisions affect everybody else's, as does your decision affect everybody else's. So when they frame it that way, like Nuremberg trials and like these horrible, like it's just offensive. It's like, no, this is a public health crisis. Pure and simple. It's not a genocide. It's not civil rights. It's a public health crisis. Stop it.
And Mike,
it's driving me nuts.
And I'll just point out, because we're focused on the numbers today, the bottom line is left, right, anti-vaxxers, whatever. If something doesn't radically change, like immediately, we're going to be living with this for 5 to 10 years.
Forever. Yeah.
Because it's Delta now. We're already hearing about potential variants from other countries.
Yep. Lambda.
You might be vaccinated against COVID-19, but that COVID-19 vaccine is less effective against the Delta variant. Right. It might not even be effective against
Lambda
Lambda, Theta, whatever. And at the end of the day, we are already seeing people dying, not of COVID, but could not get hospital beds.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
It's, I think people are focused because everything's about the news cycle is every 5 minutes in this digital world. But we're talking about something. We might be on dystopian times if the world still exists in 5 years talking about this.
Yeah, there was a guy in a Houston hospital. A picture was posted that he died. He needed to have his gallstones removed, and he died because all the beds in the ICU were taken with COVID patients. Here in Mission Hospital, they have 23 out of 24 of the ICU beds are taken by COVID patient. No, I should say all the beds are taken by COVID patients. 23 of them were unvaccinated.
Yeah. And one thing I want to
just so infuriating. Yeah. It's so self-absorbed.
So one thing
self-absorbed.
So this is something that, back last year, I predicted that we're probably going to lose more than 1 million Americans to this disease. And we are definitely on track to doing that.
We're on track.
Yeah, we are. And one of the things that I would like to hear from the people, the panel here holistically, is the fact that how morbid does it have to get? Like how macabre does it have to get? I remember when I joined the military back in 2004, 9/11 was like the most tragic thing that could ever happen, and the loss of lives and the Americans, and we started losing 9/11s a day. Then we started losing multiple 9/11s a day. And then we are at this point. It's like, what is the point when it's just so macabre that people are just like, yeah, you help destroy the world, you help destroy everything, because this is just from the American centric point of view. People in America are getting their boosters while people in India are still fighting for a vaccine. So we're not even talking about the mutations that are not only happening in our, the non-vaccinated population here in the United States, but the other, like Lambda came from Peru. It's only a matter of time. Another strain gets developed in India. There's only a matter of time before Echelon is created in Florida. These strains are here to come. And it's like, I hate to ask that question, but we are in dystopian times. How macabre does it have to get before people realize that we better do something or we're done as a species? And I don't know if there's an answer.
Well, I think you gave the answer. I think we are done as a species, and one of the I'm serious. I mean, one of the reasons I moved.
Jordan, did you just say let's all drink?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wish this weren't just water here that I've got.
I know,
but
I know, right?
But one of the reasons I left California was the wildfires. And now we see these floods, and every year the temperature is hotter than the last year, and the floods are stronger, and the hurricanes are stronger. And, to your question, Josie, what is it going to take for people to see climate change? I don't even like that word change, because it sounds like change is a positive thing. I'm trying to get a hashtag in use, the climate apocalypse, because to me, it's even worse than a crisis. It's an apocalypse now. I mean, we're in the middle of this. And I feel that maybe this is like the decline of the Roman Empire or something. This is what it's like when human civilization is on its last legs. We've got, all these Proud Boys and white supremacists coming out, and we've got taking away women's rights, and we've got climate crisis, and we've got, the pandemic. I mean, I don't know if we're going to make it till the end of the century. And I hate to, as an activist, I hate to be, to not give anybody hope. And listen, I'm old, I'm in my 60s. So, I'm on my way out. I feel bad for my kids. I told my kids not to have children. I mean, they're 24 and 28. And I said, think about what you're going to be what the world is going to be like in 50 years. It may be it's going to be very inhospitable, if not uninhabitable. And I hope I shouldn't have said that on your show, Mike.
No, the theme is like doomerism, and sometimes the conversations will get so dark that I'll bring in like a pet segment. Towards the end, we'll look at pictures of cats, dogs, because it's really like these are things that everyone is thinking. So I think that vocalizing it is actually really therapeutic, because for me myself, like especially after 2020 when Bernie Sanders lost the second time, I was kind of at this crossroads where the pandemic just began, my dad just died, we have climate change and in catastrophic levels of climate change if we don't take action in 8 years according to the IPCC. Turns out that we're kind of already fucked. So it's like this kind of like it comes down on you. It's like this heavy weight for all of us to carry around. And I think that talking about it and sometimes getting a little bit black-pilled and doomer is a little bit healthy because everyone's feeling it. And, I think that if we don't have these conversations and be frank about the world possibly ending at least habitability for human beings, then we're kind of like, we're fooling ourselves. And I think that part of the problem with the left is that we haven't been alarmist and doomer enough. It goes back to the beginning of the show when we talked about abortion, how this is kind of a hair on fire moment. And everyone's just kind of going along, I'm going to end the stream later, play some video games, watch some Netflix, and try to distract myself from the fact that, everything is going to shit. But yeah, it's a lot. And it doesn't make me feel any better that, it seems like as the world kind of goes to shit, we all are losing our minds simultaneously, which is a pretty good segue into this week's weekly dose of stupidity. But I want to wait to get to that. So we're past the...
Wait, we haven't already done that?
Not yet. Go ahead, Jordan.
Can I say something real quick?
Absolutely.
Spent a lot of time focused on the right, their extremism, obviously the growing, whatever you want to call it. MAGA meets Q meets the anti-vaxxer.
Radicalized.
Let's not forget the Democratic Party's role. Let's not forget the Democratic Party's role in all this, because at the end of the day, we're talking about a 6-3 Supreme Court. You could blame Susan Sarandon and Jill Stein if you want. President Obama didn't fight for his Supreme Court justice.
No, he didn't.
He let the right wing and Mitch McConnell hijack the Constitution. He didn't fight at all. Merrick Garland, whether you like him or not, should have been a Supreme Court justice, and Obama allowed it to happen. But we're talking about the climate apocalypse. I call it the inferno, but apocalypse is good too.
All of these are good names.
I mean, President Obama, like Gavin Newsom in California, was handing out fracking permits like candy,
like cookies.
He bragged at the end of his presidency that they have done more fracking and more exporting of oil than anybody before. That was a Democrat. I mean, the list could go on and on. In the case of Joe Biden, let's not, in his defense, he certainly had a lot of shit on his desk when he walked in. There was nothing stopping from Joe Biden from giving everybody $2,000 a month to stay home, stop the spread. And he kind of sort of did a $1,400 check. Didn't do anything. He did not, other than vaccines. They did very little in the form of, stopping the spread beyond vaccines. Frankly, Joe Biden, I've been reading.
He's MIA right now. He's not doing anything.
I've been reading legal people. Technically, if people want their freedom and not to get vaccinated, that's fine. It would be legal to deny them taking flights, trains,
I'm all for it.
And Biden's not for that. So
I am definitely for that.
Right wing.
Same.
Well, the midterms, you can't forget about the midterms. People are going to start preparing for them starting in December. So we can't do anything like that with the midterms coming
starting
up.
in September, starting right now.
They think they have this short-term mentality to deal with long-term problems. But I do want to break some news.
Or they just enable it.
I do want to break some activist news on your show, Mike.
Sure.
Which is that Food and Water Watch and several other organizations are going to be doing what they hope is going to be the biggest civil disobedience in U.S. history in Washington, D.C. between October 11 and October 15th over the issue. And it's going to be directed squarely at Biden. And they want him to immediately ban fracking on all public lands and declare a climate emergency. Now, I think they could ask for a lot more, but they want to do something that's doable so that they can, in my Marshall Gann's class, Leadership, Organizing, and Action, I learned that incremental wins are important to boost morale and grow the movement. So I guess they want to ask for something that he can actually deliver So, anyway, they want to have about 1,500 people arrested, which would be the most arrests ever in U.S. history. And so I hope that people in and around Washington, I'm helping to provide some buses to go there. So from different states. So I hope people will go because this is really our last stand. And to end a hopeful note before you get to your stupid segment, my son, I told this to my son's environmental science teacher when he was in 9th grade. So, that was about 8 years ago. And maybe it was longer ago because he's 24. No, it was probably about 10 years ago. And she said, Lauren, if you really feel this way, then why don't you just give up and just party till the end? And I said, well, at the end of my life, I want to be able to say that my life had meaning and that I did everything I could. So I try to focus on local and state politics where we actually can make a difference. And I've actually changed, from I never wanted to go to be in elective office because I don't like to compromise. I don't like to make nice to stupid people and all that stuff that you have to do when you're in office. I wanted to just be, the activist activating for the most extreme position, ban fracking everywhere. And Obama did quadruple fracking, by the way, not Texas oilman George Bush, but Barack Obama.
Right.
And so, basically, and I will say this right now, it was Jimmy Dore that changed me. I used to hate these two expressions. Politics is the art of the possible, and don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I used to think, oh, don't tell me that. I got to fight for, the extreme thing. But you know what? His fight against the squad and against Bernie and against these incremental changes that they're trying to do now really turned me around like 180 degrees, because I realized that Medicare expansion is going to get relief to tens of millions of people. And lowering the eligibility age, getting dental, vision, and hearing, having a big pharma negotiate with Medicare, having an end to the caps, lowering the caps, all these things that Bernie's trying to fight for. And he's almost 80 years old. He's schlepping around the country, going to these red states, trying to convince people. And to call this guy a cuck, I mean, it's really shameful. I mean, we have to fight for this, and it doesn't mean that we're compromising. It doesn't mean that we're giving up, because why did we want Medicare for all? Because we think people should have health care. This is going to give people health care. Would we rather not? I mean, we're not going to get Medicare for all this year, folks. So why don't we be a little bit more realistic? And I can't even believe I'm saying this, but I am.
Lauren, you sound like a neo-lib. God, no, I'm just kidding.
I'm a shit-lib.
No, yeah, I've been called that too. No, Lauren, what you're saying is really important, because like my mom, for example, she is on Medicare. She hasn't gotten eyeglasses for 5 years because it's not covered. She hasn't gone to a dentist in who knows how long. Because, if she goes to the dentist, she has to take out a care credit card and make monthly payments, which are really expensive. The interest rate is really high. So she just chooses to not do that because it's too much money. So like these little things, they're not nothing. It's not like none of us wanted to be here saying, man, I really hope that the Medicare expansion goes through. We all wanted Medicare for all, but we have to adapt to changing situations. And to the point that Jordan made, like it's not a great situation. Like going back to the doomerism conversation, like I felt like with Donald Trump, we were like his foot was all the way to the floor on the gas, like driving us towards that cliff. And with Joe Biden, he eased up a little bit, but the direction is still clear. We're still headed off that cliff. So, as long as, and this is my thing, this is something that we talked about on the very first episode of this show, climate change, and how, we may have already passed the tipping point. What do we do with this burden, this information, right? Because some people still don't even think that climate change is real. But those of us who are aware of it, those of us who see it, like for me, I live in the Pacific Northwest. Last year in September, the wildfires made the air literally toxic. Like you could smell it through the homes of your houses everywhere. Everyone I know was affected, had asthma. So like, what do we do? And one of the panelists, Dylan Burton, said, look, this is what we do. We go down fighting if we go down. Knowing that we're going down, that doesn't mean that we don't fight. When we can't walk anymore, when we're on our last leg, as long as we know deep down we did everything that we could, that in and of itself is something that we have to accept, right? Because we're not going to be able to save the world. We might not be able to save the world. We likely won't save the world. But if we don't at least try, then we are failing. But having said that, though,
the really dark, I'm going to say this real quick. There is a dark, weird thing. Okay, so when you lose a massive part of the human population, the Earth cools quite a bit.
That's
they're,
true.
They're like
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, like, if the people don't want to get vaccinated and things get real bad, like, there could be some weird silver lining, but since we're black pilling everybody, might as well go with it. And I don't think about that.
We're not getting out of this wormhole that we're going in with the doomerism just yet, but we will take a break from it because I do have some good news, folks. There is a lot of people who care, who want to get involved and do something to speak out. And that's why I have our featured content creator of the week. This week, I have an individual who, is very similar to all of our politics, but he has a YouTube channel that's small. And I wanted to give him a chance to plug his content, folks. This is our weekly featured content creator of the week, one of 2 remaining features that we'll be doing. Take a look.
Dystopian times.
Hey Mike, and hello LeftTube. I go by Stateless Patriot and I run a channel called Stateless Patriot. I've been following politics pretty closely for about 5 or 6 years, and it was all sparked by the 2016 campaign of this man. I'm a leftist that intends to explore the working mechanisms of various leftist ideologies and how they can be utilized to influence and change this corrupt capitalist machine that crushes and scams us every second of our lives. The goals of my channel include solidarity among the left, and by generating more dialogue and educating more people. With more time and exposure, I feel like my channel can be a useful tool in making people think harder about things like propaganda, manipulation, empathy, and power. What Stateless Patriot means to me is that no matter where you reside on the planet Earth, you can take pride in the causes that struggling people and the working class fight for every day against ruthless systems and oppression anywhere around the world, regardless of the country. It's not a perfect name, but it gets people's attention. And as the late, great Michael Brooks has said, be kind to people, be ruthless to systems. On my channel, I would also want to devote time into holding people accountable who sabotage leftists with harmful behaviors or misguided ideas. Apart from everything I've mentioned so far, not all my content will be me taking things super seriously. You can expect to see various tier lists for fun, of which I've done one already for progressive channels. And yes, of course, the Humanist Report is S tier. And also in time, I would like to go over my political journey from becoming a right-winger to where I am now, as well as revisiting old videos of mine. If any of this interests you, I'd love for you to come check out my channel. And you can also follow me on Twitter at the Twitter handle StatelessPatriot2, since Twitter can't make handles properly, I guess. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you soon.
Well, folks, that was Stateless Patriot. I think that we can very easily get him to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the week. And so far, I believe all but 2 of our featured content creators hit that goal within a week. So let's do it. Check them out. This is all about solidarity, building up people who I think previously would have been able to grow, but due to algorithmic changes and so much other people getting, jumping in, it's a little bit more difficult. So giving people a boost is really important. I will say that the last day was today to submit your channel. So I did not have any new submissions today. I checked. And so I have already found the final featured content creator for next week's season finale. So folks, we are towards the end of the series, actually. So the one more featured content creator left. And I just really encourage everyone to do what they can to help build solidarity. And folks. So getting back into our doomer spiral, this is the weekly dose of stupidity. And I'm not being hyperbolic when I say this. I think this is the dumbest thing that we're going to talk about. So folks, here we are.
In a world of politics dominated by the strange, the deranged, and outright insane, we'll now take a moment to shine a light on the craziest of what politics has to offer. This is your weekly dose of stupidity.
Now, this week, we have a gentleman who walked into a fast food restaurant. They have a mask requirement. He was asked to put on a mask, and not only did he protest, he whipped out his penis and peed on the floor. Take a look.
Ma'am, you do not have a brain. You do not have a brain. What are the rules? Why? It's not a BC policy. BC policy says you have to observe exemptions. Well, fucking psychopath.
Fuck you, psychopath, says the man who pissed on the floor. So, folks.
The counter. He pissed on the counter.
It's disgusting.
Can I just point out?
He's projecting. That's some Olympic level projection right there. Wow.
Yeah, those fast food employees do not get paid enough to deal with him. I don't care if they were making $2,000 per hour. There's no amount of money that is worth it to like deal with that level of delusions. And I mean, this is a microcosm of a bigger issue. We've seen these weird anti-mask meltdowns across the country. I have a video coming out tomorrow of anti-mask parents showing up to school boards across the country, threatening violence, assaulting people. On top of that, we have this phenomenon where as these mask mandates get reinstituted by governors, you have local sheriff departments penning these letters, grandstanding basically saying, we're not going to enforce your mask mandates, when it's most of the time up to businesses because, you know, there's not really action at the federal level to enforce mask mandates. So, I mean, I don't necessarily know that our commentary can add to that wonderful video that is going to send me into another doomer week. But Jordan, what are your thoughts on the state of American life?
You know, Mike, I have traveled for 6 years, probably been to about 35 states. There's a lot of empty land in America, a lot of empty land where if you really, wanted to do some organizing, you could really remove, well, I don't say remove, but, just kindly move a certain swath of the population to that land where they could live, just put a wall up, as Trump would say, and they could live unvaccinated, maskless, pee wherever they want. And, if they don't even want to have a government there, that's fine, as long as they're walled in. Because, again, I said it earlier, this is not about masks and it's not about vaccines. It is about the insane culture war that, frankly, we don't have time, but a lot of it has been perpetuated by the media over the last 30 years. Fox, Rush Limbaugh, to a less, on the other side, MSNBC, now CNN, but mostly right-wing lunatics, and the Republican Party, which has really become kind of a quasi media apparatus masquerading as government. So
right.
I think, I would say to that guy and others, if you want to live free, go free, air quotes, good luck to you.
Yeah. Tina, do you want to jump in here? Because I saw this video and I was speechless.
I actually am not shocked. I mean, that's the thing.
I'm not shocked either.
I agree with what Jordan's saying here. This is a group of incredibly radicalized folks. So you've got Proud Boys, you've got neo-Nazis, you've got Trump supporters. They've all sort of coalesced together in this sort of a cult that they're in, and they're just jumping from cause to cause mindlessly. I don't even think, like, if you'd asked several of these people if they were super anti-vaccine 10 years ago, I doubt they would have said yes. Yet here we are. So they're very radicalized. I think it's a culture war issue, as Jordan is saying. And it's just really sad that this is what America is like. This is America. Like, this is where we're at. Like, it's amazing to me that, yeah, I know, it's shocking, right? It's shocking that it's gotten this ridiculous, but here we are. And I don't think we've seen the worst of it yet. I think we're going to see more violence in the streets as well. So, it is a sign of the times. It is dystopian, as the name of the show is stating. And I think it's going to get much worse because these guys are incredibly radicalized. And when this is done, they'll just find something else to get behind, because really nobody's taken away your freedoms, folks. These were folks that were fine with private businesses being able to make their decisions previously, right? It's a private business. They should be able to say, this is what I want in my establishment, right? But now that it's, well, you're telling me I have to wear a mask and that's against my personal freedom. Now that they framed it in that sort of right-wing rhetoric, it's an entirely different conversation. But here's the thing.
They were very happy with, right-wingers not selling cakes to gay people.
That's right. Exactly. I mean, the hypocrisy is astonishing. Exactly. So they pick and choose where that applies, right?
Yeah, I'm really thinking of doing an app or at least a Facebook page about the businesses in Asheville that are not enforcing the mask mandate. I mean, I go into these businesses and I have one of these encounters every day. I was in the Ingalls, which is the supermarket, and this was the first day, so they could have a pass. Maybe they didn't find out about it. But one of the guys at the cash register had a mask, the other one didn't. And I said, they just declared a state of emergency in Buncombe County, and we're supposed to be wearing masks indoors now. And they kind of ignored me. And as I was walking out, I turned back and I said, it's the law. And as I almost walked out the door, I heard him mock me. It's the law, And then my son's own store, he's working in the Ace Hardware. Hi, James. I went in there the other day, and the women behind the cash register, they were wearing masks, but this guy that was walking right in front of me, customer, was not masked. And I said, we're supposed to be wearing masks. I'm so tentative now. It's usually not like me, but I never know if these people are going to hit me with a baseball bat or not.
Exactly.
So I said, no, we're supposed to be wearing masks now. And he said, oh, do you want me to do this? And he took his T-shirt and went above his mouth, And then he gets to the counter, and the woman says, oh, you don't have to worry. I've had both my vaccines. And I said, but you could still be a carrier. And she said, I don't want to hear your opinion. It's like, it's like, I don't know how much we can do as individuals. I feel like we got to start boycotting these places, get the word out.
I guess I don't understand why they're so severely politicizing what should be only a public health crisis, but that is what they're choosing to do. And it's become so problematic. We had a couple of them show up at different Target stores wearing women's underwear over their heads.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they said, this is a mask. You have to let us in. And I'm like, why are you doing this? I mean.
Yeah, that's intense.
Yeah,
like,
Josie,
so the idea of like, so you said Nashville, and, one of the big things that, so Asheville. Like, okay, I thought Tennessee. So it's not Tennessee. You're not. Okay.
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay, fair enough. So that's a fair state. It still fits my conversation about this point. Is like, I wish like the moral consistency and we've already talked about hypocrisy once today, but the hypocrisy of how we manage things. For example, since I'm a trans rights activist and I, work for a national nonprofit and a national researcher on this stuff, you see things like in Tennessee and then in North Carolina, they actually are like forcing businesses to do things, and the law and the government says that's the way it is. So when you say, oh, the school says that you're not allowed to send your kid into the sport where they the gender that they are, but if you say, no, it's my personal freedom to send my kid, or no, it's my personal freedom, like in Arkansas, to give my kid hormone replacement therapies, they're like, no, it's not. It's the government's right to be able to control that aspect of your body and not let you do the things that you want to do. But yet then they'll go and say, oh, you can't have a mask mandate, when they used to make a joke about, no shoes, no shirt, no service.
Yeah.
I remember I lived in Texas, and I remember the Texas conservative values that I was raised with. And like everybody was like, oh, you got to be respectful. You got to listen to the business. The business can kick you out if they don't want you to be there.
No,
And we have the right to refuse service to anyone. I remember being raised with businesses having that right to refuse service to anyone. So now all of a sudden, when businesses start doing that to them, that's when they start getting mad. And what Jordan said about the bakers, like, it's like, oh my God, like the whole world ended because somebody was forced to be a part of that public space. And now when they feel like they're being pushed out of an establishment, like minorities in this country have been doing for hundreds of years, now all of a sudden, because you don't want to wear a piece of cloth in your face, now you suffer the oppression of the minorities that have to deal with this on a daily basis since the beginning of this country's founding and before. Like it's so infuriating, especially for me as a woman of color that is trans, right?
Yeah.
That has all of these minority intersections, and people that don't want to wear a freaking cloth on their face literally try to say that their oppression trumps everything that anybody has ever faced, but yet critical race theory, yet cops aren't racist. Oh yeah, none of that exists, but yet you oppress me because I don't have a mask. You're a tyranny. You're a fascist. You're a communist. They'll say both on the same time.
Yeah, they'll say. Hilarious.
And so that's the world that it is for like people who realize like these people are literally crying oppression in the worst ways when our country has been founded on oppressions of minorities. And now because some Karen or some guy wants to just say, I don't want to wear a mask. It's just, I know I'm like stream of consciousness angry about this, but
no, I love it.
The hypocrisy is annoying. It's
and a lot of them are comparing it to the Holocaust.
They absolutely are, which is so offensive. It's so offensive. It's not a genocide, folks. It's a public health crisis. Just stop that right now. It's so infuriating. I want to actually also talk a little bit about the school board thing, because you did mention that, Mike, and it's been quite a huge problem here in California. There's a group that's been traveling around, going from school board meeting to school board meeting to school board meeting. I've attended a couple of them, and it's the same group. So these are not even parents that have kids in their school district. They're traveling around. So Arthur Shaper is heading this up, and I'm sorry, I just pronounced his name wrong, and I don't even care, but whatever. He has up a group called Mass Resistance, and the Southern Poverty Law Center has them classified as a hate group. But they travel around. This is not the first thing that they've attacked. Obviously, they're very much anti-gay rights, anti-trans rights, all of these things, right? But they're really lashed onto this particular thing right now. So they've been traveling around from school board meeting to school board meeting. And I was at the Palos Verdes school board meeting, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, where the school board just wasn't going to have it. So they ended up just not having the meeting and just letting these guys blabber on in the room. And then they had their meeting on Zoom away from where this crowd was. But again, my thing when I was watching this is like, none of you have kids in this school system, yet you feel the need to come here and demand these rights and your say and everything else that you're doing right now without any regard whatsoever for the actual kids that do go to this school system, for the actual parents that are here. This is so offensive on so many levels, and you don't even care or see it. And then we had another situation with this group in Huntington Beach, which is particularly problematic because you do have a lot of neo-Nazis there. You have a lot of Proud Boys there. They've had ongoing Trump rallies on the pier there for a long time that have gotten a few times out of hand. I filmed some neo-Nazis there 3 or 4 months ago. But they have been harassing the school board there in Huntington Beach because they also have a mask mandate. There is Gina Trayton Garrison, who I've actually interviewed on Status Coup, is on the school board there. She's the only Democrat on the school board. The rest of the school board are Republicans. At least I believe they are. And they all are in agreement on this, right? This is the right thing to do. Well, Tito Ortiz was their mayor for a long time. And if you know who Tito is, he's an MMA fighter. He's also a giant Trump supporter. I think he was on The Apprentice at one time before he became mayor. But he resigned a couple of months ago because he pulled the stunt with the school board where they had been allowing his children to attend through Zoom because he's refusing to have them wear masks. So they were doing a setup where they could watch online, take their classes online, et cetera, et cetera. But he decided to pull the stunt where he brought the kids to the school campus. They didn't want to let him in, and he was, demanding that they do so. And then he went onto Twitter and was playing the victim and how, his rights and he's the victim, I'm the martyr. And I read his tweet and I said, Tito, wait a second. You are asking for an exemption to the rule for everybody else. You think you're privileged enough to be granted that. And when that didn't happen, you're angry. And now you're going to blame and lash at everybody around you. But here's the thing. Your decisions are affecting every other child in that school. And the other parents in the school board have a right to make a decision that's in the interest of everybody, not just what you want. Stop being so selfish, right? So he ended up resigning over this and blaming Gina and saying that, he's like one of these guys that thinks everybody's Antifa. So Gina's Antifa, I'm Antifa. Arthur Shaper actually called me, what did he call me? Antifa boomer witch or something in a video.
What?
Yeah.
Well,
jeez.
I'm still laughing at that one.
Let me mention to you that there are people funding this, okay? I did my show 2 weeks ago with Julie Dermansky, who's a photojournalist for DSMOG. And she's been covering these mask mandate protests in Louisiana, where she lives. And she's experienced not so much physical violence like you did, Tina, but a lot of bullying and intimidation. Yeah. And she's getting very afraid. Anyway, DSMOG has done a lot of reporting into who's behind this. And it's these right-wing groups like Turning Point USA, who are funded by the Mercers, the DeVoses, the Koch brothers. Money, and they're the same groups that have funded climate science denialism. So you see there's a pattern here. It's this kind of anti-science thing. And, there are a lot of politicians that are benefiting from this, mostly the right-wing ones. And my representative, I can't let the show end without saying that over the weekend, he was speaking to a county Republican organization. And he basically talked about bloodshed. And it was going to be over these mask mandates. And somebody said, when are we going to Washington again? And he said,
I know who you're talking about now. Is he your guy?
Madison Cawthorn, yes.
Is your guy? Oh,
and I tried to have a citizen lobby meeting with him. I organized a group of people and I was in conversation with his staff, and they were putting me through all the hoops, and they said, send this thing to the scheduler, fill out this form, do all this stuff. I mean, I knew it was never going to happen. I really wanted to go in there so that I could secretly record the conversation and all the moronic things that he said. Because it's just a one-party. North Carolina is a one-party state. You could do that. So I kind of wanted to get in there and do some intel under the guise of doing a citizen lobby meeting with the guy. But it never happened because he's too busy, trying to foment insurrection 2.0.
Exactly.
I like that, Lauren. I like that. Sneaky. I like it, though. Okay, I want to ask the panel a question. So we just watched a video of a man peeing in a restaurant because he was forced to wear a mask. With the way that things are going in the United States of America, how far are we out from somebody shitting themselves in a viral video? 1 month or 1 year? Raise your hand if you think we're a year away from that. Raise your hand if you think we're a month away from.
Might already exist.
I'm saying less than a month. I'm like,
I don't know what to say.
What's the over under on the 1 month?
I just feel like we're so close to somebody like walking up to one of these school board meetings, like getting face turning red, just completely shits his pants, takes off his clothes. Like I just what I'm expecting
didn't that happen to
is it going to shock
already? Didn't that happen to Caitlin Bennett? Yeah, that's already been done.
Wait, what?
That's true. That's true.
Well,
I had to get the hit in. I had to. I'm
Oh, I
sorry.
love it.
I saw it on White Lotus, which is a great show. They did that in White
That
Lotus.
is a great show.
Yeah.
Thank you. That is a good show. I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah.
That's a good place to end with happiness of the White Lotus. Everyone go watch the White Lotus, where this is as much hopium and happiness that we can leave you with. But okay, before we go, I do want to let everyone know next week, Wednesday, is the very last episode of Dystopian Times. And I even took the time to make a trailer for it. So, folks, make sure that if you want to pirate all of the episodes, you do it before the 20th, because they will be locked behind a vault, the Humanist Report vault, similar to the Disney vault. But when I am on a vacation and, I'm low on ad revenue, I'll just re-upload all of those and monetize them again. So if you want to pirate them, then do it before the 20th. Okay, just a little bit of a plug. But yeah, next week, it's going to be a 10-person panel, including myself. Now, I'm not going to give away who the guests are. It's going to be some small creators, some big creators, but we're going to tackle some pretty heavy questions. And all of these folks who will be on next week are going to set the pace for the show, or basically set the tone post-show about, like, is there any hopium to have? So, yeah, but before we do that, of course, we have this wonderful panel here. Thank you all so much. This has been such a great show. Before we go, I want to take some time to allow each and every single one of you to tell us where we can find you, how we can support you, and what you do. Josie Rose, where can we find you? How can the people support you?
Well, I mainly stream on Twitch, so you can find me at twitch.tv/Josie Rose C, like it shows right here. And that's where you can find me. I am a person with a very eclectic background. I used to be a reactor operator for the United States Navy for 6 years, and then I was in politics for about a decade as a candidate, as a consultant, as a campaign manager all over the country. So I had a lot of fun doing that, including being a birdie delegate for the last 2 times. That's how I know a lot of these people beforehand on the panel, which is super great. And you can also find me at the same media handles on Josie Rose C on Twitter. I have it locked right now because we got hate rated a lot, and I had to buckle down because I am actually a trans national researcher for the largest trans equality organization in the country. So I have to keep my head down sometimes. There's a lot of people that are out for me just because I'm a trans girl. I'm just a trans girl. Don't come after me.
Let's show some solidarity with Josie. Give Josie a follow. Go check her out on Twitch. I mean, it's a great show. She's a great streamer. What else can I say? I'm sorry you're going through that, Josie.
Yeah, and you should keep this show going. This show's great. You're a great host of this. You're a great facilitator. I love it. So
well, thank you so much. I mean, I might bring it back next year. I'm going to be pivoting to doing interviews with candidates each week who are running in 2022, but I might bring it back. I mean, who knows? Or maybe there's going to be a new host. I won't say anything else about that. Who knows? So, Tina, where can the people check you out, and how can we support you?
Okay, so my Twitter handle is my name is Tina Desiree Berg. You can follow me there. Almost everything I'm a part of ends up there because I tweet it out. So I work with Status Quo sometimes with Jordan on bigger stories. And then I recently, if you're interested in local news, I have a podcast called District 34 that I've done for many years on California politics.
I was on that.
You've been on it, yeah? So has Jess. Yeah, it's been on it too. Lauren, you need to come on. You're the only one on this panel that has not been on my podcast. How is that possible?
Let's do it, Lauren. Come on.
Invite me.
All right, let's do it. But I've now taken District 34 and turned it to a news co-op on local news here in California. We just started a YouTube channel recently. So if you do want to watch like local stuff, like what's going on in California, coverage from the protests, what have you, there's all kinds of videos on there in that area. And that's it.
Oh, great.
Actually, wait a minute. No, that's not it. Ron Placone will kick my butt if I don't say this. So I'm also doing a podcast now with Ron Placone called Academy Refugees. And a lot of people don't know this about Ron, so I might be outing him on this. He also has a master's degree. Mine's in philosophy. His is in media studies. So it's both of us talking about being Academy refugees, meaning we've got our master's degrees, we didn't get our PhDs, and this is why. And we kind of talk about academic stuff in a non-academic way. And of course, he's funny.
I'm in that same camp. I got my master's, and then I dropped out of the PhD program. Or I didn't drop out.
So
I took a permanent sabbatical.
Okay, you need to come on and join us then, because you would have a really good time with this, because we like go to town.
For sure. Jordan, how can we support you, and where can we check you out if people don't already know?
Yeah, people might not know because YouTube hides us, like many other channels.
They would never, Jordan. They would never.
Status Coup, C-O-U-P on YouTube. As humbly as I could say it, we are one of the few outlets that actually do more than pontificate. We leave our studio. Flint, Michigan, environmental protests. We've covered many, too many black men being executed, Amazon union busting, and working on something now that we might end up going to Buffalo. It definitely costs a lot of money to actually do real journalism. That's why most don't do it. So you can check us out, Status Coup, on YouTube. And if you like what you see, you could support us as a member at statuscoup.com/join.
Thank you so much. And oftentimes we'll cover your segments on the Twitch streams and sometimes on YouTube. Really, really quality content, folks. So be sure to check out Jordan and Status Coup and the underground journalism that him and Tina do. Last but certainly not least, the great Lauren Steiner. Lauren, where can we find your work and how can we support you?
Well, I do a show called The Robust Opposition, in which I interview activists and organizers, authors, independent journalists, progressive candidates, and progressive elected officials. And I mostly cover issues, and I do not do any commentary on my show. I used to do that in LA when I got stuck in terrible traffic. I would do these screaming while driving rants that used to get so many views. It was terrible. It was just me going on and on. I mean, the first one that I did was when Tom Perez won over Keith Ellison, and I was fuming mad, and I'm driving from one meeting to another, and the next thing I know, I've got 12,000 viewers on this thing, and I'm like,
I need to start multitasking.
Yeah. And then I did one where Bernie Sanders tweeted out something about Russia 5 times in 24 hours, and my thing was called Bernie Sanders STFU, and that got 13,000. So I'm like, no, but I want my more serious shows to get views. So I'm on Facebook. I've been doing this show since 2016, December 2016, right after the election. So my Facebook and all my posts are public, lauren.steiner.la. On Twitter, I'm Lauren_Steiner. And on YouTube, I am Lauren from LA. And now I can't change it because now I live in Asheville, but it's all LA.
I was going to say, because it's different now. All right. Well, folks, thank you so much. This has been such a great panel. These are always therapeutic. I mean, even though we talk about really horrific things and they're depressing subjects, I feel like there is a lot of value in talking about it together. And what I always hear from people who watch the show is that even though these subjects are super depressing, like it makes them feel better knowing that like this is on the minds of other people. And we all have like multiple brain cells that work. So it's actually an intelligent conversation that we can actually have, and substantive and nuanced, and not just clickbaity or drama focused. So yeah, thank you all so much. I really enjoyed this. I will see you all next week. I will be back shortly to read any super chats or comments right after the credits. I'll see you all next week, folks. This has been Dystopian Times. My name is Mike Figueredo.
Thank you and bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you.
Well, folks, that was a fantastic panel. Thank you so much to my guests. I don't think I missed all of the super chats. I got some of them up on the screen, but let me go through here and make sure that I thank each and every single one of you. So we have Tyler Hackner. Tyler, you sent in 4? Oh my goodness. 4 super chats. Tyler, thank you so much. So I'm going to miss this show. I know we have one more episode, but still LOL. Oh, I'm sorry. That means so much. We'll stay tuned because maybe I can find a way to find someone to take over while I'm doing Canada interviews on a different channel. I have some ideas to kind of like keep the show flowing. We'll see though. I want there to be a continuation of panels, and my hope was like to get the ball rolling with this show. So if other people feel encouraged to do panels, I think that would be like best case scenario. That's what I really want to get out of this. Tyler Hackner also says it's a piece of cloth. Get over it, people. Right? I mean, I think it was Tina that said, you have these no shoes, no shirt, no service signs, and nobody questions it. Nobody's angry that we have to put on clothing and we can't hang brain, in a Walmart. So I'm over the petulance with these mask folks. Tyler Hackner also sends in a $4.99 super chat saying subscribed to our featured content creator. That's great. And on top of that, let me see. Oh, there we are. So John Barlick with a $2 super chat says Chad Bernie. Yes, Bernie is indeed a Sigma male. Absolutely. Temple of Thoughts with a $5 super chat says if idiots don't want to have a COVID passport, then why not turn it around? Only have unvaxxed need passports. Yeah. So I mean, basically, like what I think that Temple is saying here is that if you don't like COVID-19 passports, then just get vaccinated, and it literally won't be an issue. You'll get a card. There was a lady that was like busted today who had a fake card to travel to Hawaii, and she even misspelled Moderna. It was Maderna. I mean, Jesus Christ, people, just get the fucking vaccine. Your life will be so much more easier, and on top of that, guess what? You'll be protected. I mean, it's a no-brainer to me. We have Nathan Herrera with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Nathan. No message here, but I really appreciate you supporting the program. I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, Maderna, as Chaos Knight says. So Dieter McBusiness with a $1.99 super chat says Rogan classic victim of stratosphere celeb success. Yeah. Well put. Tyler Hackner with a $4.99 super chat again. Tyler, thank you so much. So incredibly generous. Let's see. Can't believe we have to say it, but we are not horses, right? I'm so like, this timeline, folks, is the dumbest timeline imaginable. The dumbest timeline imaginable. Oh no, Celeste says her dad has COVID-19. Celeste, I'm so sorry to hear that. Hopefully your dad is vaccinated, but hopefully everything is okay. I'll keep him in my thoughts, Celeste. I'm so sorry to hear that. Let's see here. So Dieter McBusiness with a $4.99 super chat says, dark demographic upside is that anti-vaxxers are mostly Trumplicans, so COVID is hurting their voter numbers. Also, I knew Afghanistan would blow over with mainstream media. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about like these pundits who are anti-vax. Like, this is your base. Like, Tucker Carlson is basically encouraging people or discouraging them from getting vaccinated who watch his program. It's just like, it's weird. We have a $5 super chat from Omega Metal Chase 92. Do you think education in both secondary and post-secondary need reforms, not just more money thrown at them? Yeah, I think so. I think Finland has a really good model where they don't hyper-focus on testing. I don't necessarily think that's the best gauge for how good a child is doing. Yeah, I can see reforms. I don't necessarily think I'm versed enough to speak intelligently on this, but I will say I would support reforms, include more history. Yeah, for sure. We have, let's see here, Tyler Hackner with another $4.99 super chat. These unjust killings should not stand. We can't continue to live like this under this police state. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's exhausting. And for people who don't know anyone who's a person of color in their life, I hope that like the Black Lives Matter protests has educated them about what people of color have been experiencing forever, right? Like in 2020, I kind of feel like the collective white consciousness, or a lot of it, was awakened by the Black Lives Matter, like the George Floyd protests. And I hope that they don't become complacent. I hope that people who finally get what people of color have been saying forever now, like I hope they get it, and I hope that they like continue to advocate for, you know, our Black and brown brothers and sisters, because that is, it's important. See here, Tyler Hackner with another 4.99 super chat. Tyler, oh my god, I'm so like I'm so flattered. You sent in so many super chats. I really appreciate it, Tyler. You are so kind. Conservative ideology. We care about embryos, but once you're born, it's over. Yeah, Tyler, that's the thing that blows my mind about these abortion or anti-abortion Republicans. You know, they're so hypocritical, right? If you're pro-life, shouldn't that also mean that you're anti-war? Shouldn't that also mean that you are, you know, pro-Medicare for all? Mike is a sellout to Tyler Hackner. Taking money from Big Tyler. I love that. Thank you, Alex. Good to see you, Alex. Planet Tierio with a $5 super chat, no message. Thank you so much. We have Sam, the great Sam. Sam, hope you're doing well. Most evangelicals are too far gone. I highly recommend reading this book, Jesus and John Wayne, to see how we got here. Yeah, that's interesting. I agree with you, Sam. I think that most evangelicals are never going to change their minds. It's really frustrating. Really frustrating. James, what a nice little comment here. Thank you, Mike, for your time and being a part of my day. Thank you. Oh, I really appreciate that. Thank you for being a part of my day now. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. You guys are just, you're so wonderful. Okay, so we have a 1999 super chat from FinFan33. Thanks for bringing such interesting panelists together, Mike. Thank you, FinFan, excuse me. Thank you so much. What a gigantic super chat. 1999. Wow. That is so kind of you. Thank you so much. Wow. You folks are just too kind. FamCam ASMR with a $10 super chat says, apparently Streamlabs implemented a safe mode to combat hate raids when Twitch would not. Worth looking into. That being said, my heart goes out to all y'all dealing with hate. Yeah, I know that Trihex was also hit with a hate raid. He shared like screenshots. I feel like there's got to be like something that Twitch can easily do to stop this. Like, you can't be raided by someone unless you're following them to stop the hate raids, because that's awful. I mean, I haven't been hate raided, but I can't imagine how it would make me feel if I was hate raided, right? I mean, and for Josie, she had multiple hate raids. That's just like this can't stand. Twitch and the internet has to be welcoming to all communities. It's so like, and Twitch, I'm so sick of Twitch virtue signaling, pretending like they care about communities of color and marginalized groups, but doing fuck all when things like this happen, you know? So I stand in solidarity with everyone who's not streaming today. And shout out to Lance from the Surfs. I wouldn't have found out about the Twitch day or day of no Twitch. I don't know what it's called, but I wouldn't have found out about it if he didn't broadcast that this was taking place. We have another super chat from Sam O. Hey, Mike. Hey, everyone. This was at the start of the show. Hey, Sam. It's always good to hear from you. Wonderful person. And we have another Tyler Hackner super chat. Tyler. Oh, my God. Republican Party wants to be the American Taliban, especially with abortion. They're straight up saying it. Yeah, that's exactly it. Exactly it. Tyler, thank you so much. Wow. Really? So you deal with it too, Hildebeest? A lot of troll raids? Jesus. I mean, I haven't been on Twitch long enough, and I don't stream regularly enough, but it's, Jesus. So you get it too? Man, I honestly, like, I feel so frustrated because to be like a woman or a marginalized person and have a platform and try to build up a platform, I mean, this is just inevitable. Like, it comes with the territory, and it's so fucking disgusting. Man, this is I was not like, I'm not super familiar with all of like the Twitch happenings. But I'm glad that people are making noise about hate raids because it's so bad. Like, this shouldn't be such a common phenomenon. You know, when I first was on Twitch, I think it was like my second stream, and I got raided. I immediately thought, oh God, this is sus. Am I being like brigaded by haters? Because that's happened on YouTube, not like a hate raid, just like a troll raid. But raids are usually like something that are really cool. It's supposed to be like this showing of solidarity, but you know, they're being co-opted now by these fuckwads who are doing hate raids, and that's just like unforgivable to me. Okay, folks, so before I bounce, I will take some of your questions here. Non-super chat questions. So if you would like to ask me anything that's on your heart, please feel free. Oh, that feels better to take the headphones out. Yes. Larry Elder is insane. He wants the minimum wage to be $0. Does that sound like a serious person to you? No. Dragon Slayer Dragon with a $5 super chat. Mike, hey Mike, hey, thank you so much. Hey, it's so nice to see you. I really appreciate the super chat. Thank you. Mr. Anderson says, Mike, are you doing Twitch tomorrow? I am doing Twitch tomorrow. Yes, absolutely. I will be there. 7 p.m. BST. Thank you for asking, and thank you for reminding me to plug that, Mr. Anderson. Let's see. Who makes the dope ass beats? So, Lord Magnus makes custom beats for me. Lord Magnus has a YouTube channel. He also sells and licenses his beats. Please check out his channel. He is just one of the best. Also, Raw Heats makes the beats. And for Dystopian Times, Carl Casey has, I use all of his beats. Carl Casey is someone who doesn't, like, I don't know him personally, but he lets people use his beats if you give him credit for it. So, Carl Casey, Raw Heats, and Lord Magnus, all the beat makers for this show, and incredibly based as well. Hey, lurking is perfectly justifiable as well. Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Yes, twitch.tv/Humanist Report for sure. By the way, when Dystopian Times ends, I will most likely be moving Twitch streams to Wednesdays because I think that's going to be easier. Like, if I do a segment from Twitch that I want to post to YouTube, like, to give myself that extra day before the weekend increases the likelihood that I'll be able to take the weekend off fully. So I want to try to like open up my schedule so I can, you know, just have more free time and improve the quality of like the main show as well. So be on the lookout for that. I think it's probably going to switch to Wednesdays, just FYI. Alex says, what do you think of Peter Coffin? Personally, I think their Twitter is kind of trash, but their YouTube is pretty solid. In fact, their style of video inspired mine. I don't know enough about Peter Coffin. I would agree that their Twitter takes are not to my liking. The YouTube videos of theirs that I watched, I've always liked, but not a fan of their Twitter. So I tend to agree with you. Although, to be fair, I really don't know enough. Yeah, I don't know enough, but what I've seen on Twitter, I'm not necessarily super fond of. So I agree, Alex. Mike, can you please do a video of the Indigenous genocide in Canada? I really want people to know the history and be more in the know about it. You know, what I usually do for situations like this is I try to defer to people who live in those countries. So what I want to recommend is The Serfs, who has done really extensive videos. He is very knowledgeable, very passionate about this subject. So I really want to point people to his work because there's nothing that I would be able to add to the conversation that he hasn't already said. But yeah, this is something that is really important. Everything that I know about this is through Lance from The Serfs. So I would really recommend that people check that out because we have to grapple with this, right? It's not just Canada, it's the United States as well. North America has to grapple with the way that we did genocide against indigenous peoples. Like we need to stop pretending like it didn't happen. We need to call it what it is, a genocide, mass murder. Yeah. A. McG says, "Hey, Mike, love you and your content so much." Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's so kind of you. You always speak truth to power and are fair and mostly unbiased. One question: would your husband ever want to take part in the show? Well, thank you so much for the question. Possibly. I mean, I'm not sure. He's more shy than me. So he might not really feel comfortable with that, but if he doesn't ever get on camera, just know that he does make a contribution in the editing. So all of the YouTube videos that go up every day, he edits like 95% of them to 99% of them. So he kind of adds in humor, he'll add in memes. So in a way, he's a giant part of the show, but just kind of like behind the scenes, and people don't really know about it. But I mean, possibly, I'm not sure. It's totally up to him. I don't want to pressure him to get on camera with me, even though I think it'd be awesome. You are very, very welcome, Kate Reezy. Thank you for bringing that up also. Keep rolling, Mike. You're doing good work. Thank you. It feels good to hear that once in a while. Thank you so much. Yeah, Lance does really great work on this topic. Really, really good work. I always try to highlight good work. And yeah, Lance has been on it from day one. I know David Dole also talked about this. Lance, I believe his mom is indigenous, so this is why, like, this is personal to him. So he knows the history, he knows the facts, he knows the horrible response from the Trudeau government. I just can't like recommend Lance's content on this enough. Like, it's great. So check it out. You're very welcome. Very welcome. Okay, folks. Well, I think that's pretty much everything. You should credit him more, in my opinion. Yeah. I feel like maybe I should do that. I think you're right. Because like only the most like hardcore followers know that my husband is the editor. So yeah, I mean, I don't do a credits on the show, but yeah, I'll have to add in like editor's notes or something so he gets credit for sure. All your YouTube outros are based as fuck, and I love when a new one comes out. Yes, thank you. I really appreciate that. I work hard on those. I am probably going to create some new ones because, the ones that I have are a little bit stale. So yeah, I might make some new ones. Look out for that towards the end of the month, possibly. Joe, how are you doing? Hope you're doing well. Lots of love, Mike. Stay safe out there. Joe, you too. Misha, hope you're doing well. Does he have tattoos too? My husband does not have any tattoos. I'm the tattooed one. Yeah, I have enough tattoos for the both of us. Let's see. I'm going to have to check this channel more since YouTube hadn't notified me till now. Oh, of course. Yeah, if you turn on notifications, but you don't select like all notifications, it doesn't ever notify you. That's like what I'm hearing from people. So it's a little bit weird. One thing that I noticed that like works, and this is totally a shameless plug to help me in the algorithm too, is try to get in the habit of liking videos, because if you like a video, YouTube will usually recommend you that channel more frequently. So like the channels that I watch, I try to get in the habit like, because that definitely does make a difference. And YouTube, the algorithm sees that as, oh, okay, you're interested in this, you like this. So then it continues to like notify you and whatnot. So it's a way to help out the creator, and also it makes the algorithm better. I think anyways, at least that's what I heard. But who knows? Oh, that's a good point. Please set your Twitch dashboard to only allow verified users in chat. It helps to stop hate raids. I might have to resort to that if Twitch doesn't do anything. I mean, I haven't gotten hate raided yet, and I do want to give people the ability to participate if they like aren't necessarily a viewer of mine on the regular. So it's something that I will consider if it becomes an issue. Thank you for the recommendation, though. Let's see. Anti-vax protests in Europe. No, I have not. I mean, I've seen some, but ooh, militants. Oh my God, Ash. I'm not surprised. Yeah, I have to check on the regular, otherwise I get late notifications. Yeah. It's really frustrating. Yeah, another person saying I almost never get notified of live streams from any channel I follow. Yeah, it's really, really frustrating. It's really frustrating. I mean, for me, if I'm subscribed to a channel, I feel like that's just, it should be assumed that I want to see what the channel puts out. So the fact that, you have to then select notifications and then you select which type of notifications, it's just so convoluted and overly complex, and it doesn't have to be like that. So I don't get it. But yeah. I try, Dieter. Sometimes I fail, but I try not to. I just, honestly, there's so much online leftist infighting that I'm burnt out. I don't even care anymore. I genuinely don't care. That's just where I'm at. I'm so over it. I don't all these squabbles that are so petty. It doesn't matter. I mean, the fucking world is ending basically. Who gives a shit about these, petty shit talking? When I say that, sometimes I engage, right? But I try not to. I'm just sick of it. I could tell other people are too. Hey, Mike, would you mind making a video about Larry Elder? California is at risk right now. Actually, I have good news. I filmed a video about the situation in California. It's basically from the perspective of Tucker Carlson lying about the recall race, but I do get into it because I haven't talked about this on YouTube. We have covered this on one of the Twitch streams, but I do talk about this, and I dedicate some time to Larry Elder. So definitely check that out. I can't remember when it's going up. But the video is dropping soon. I think sometime this week. My step-grandparents got COVID and are very immunocompromised. Oh, no. Got the antibody transfusion instantly and only had mild symptoms. That's good. Okay. That's... whew. If that saved them, that's good. That's really good. Hopefully they were vaccinated as well. Oh my God. Okay, I think I'm tired. I will see you all next week for the season finale. I hope that you will tune in, folks. Take care. It's nice chatting with everyone. Yeah, I'll see you all later, folks.